Today, Jefferson Smith is filling in for me because I'm in Los Angeles for the Hollywood premiere of a new movie, a new Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I'm in. It's called Ice on Fire, and it'll be playing on HBO on June 11th, just FYI. But anyhow, that's where I am. But I wanted to drop in and please ask you to support Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is a vital community resource. It's a really important, not just community. It is. There really is nothing else out there like Free Speech TV. There is no other network that has an unabashed, proud, progressive programming lineup. It just comes right out and says, "Okay, here's who we are. Here's what we do," and you know. By the way, if you'd like to keep seeing this, if you want to see more, please chip in now. Please call 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV doesn't exist without you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV was started originally. John Schwartz and John Stout started this thing playing videotapes of like conferences and speeches and stuff like that. Good progressive programming, but it wasn't live stuff and it wasn't interactive. And over the last decade or so, they have expanded this network and turned it into this extraordinary place where progressive stuff is happening all the time. I mean, we're going to be broadcasting live from Netroots Nation. I mean, there's just like all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all because you have called 877-378-8669 and said, yes, I want to pitch in. I can't tell you how important it is. Well, I can tell you. I am telling you how important it is that right now you support Free Speech TV, that you give us a call right now at 877-378-8669 and kick in your support. Because, this network literally doesn't exist without you. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that slightly misstates my slogan. It's fair and only slightly unbalanced, our program. With a 72, so it's it's like the pennies that are misprinted. It's even more valuable. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of Guns and the Second Amendment, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month gift, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And, a lot of people are moving to stainless steel, by the way, getting away from the plastic and all the chemicals and the hormone disruptors and things that are in plastic bottles. If you're going to have a water bottle, this is the way to do it. Plus, then, now the bottled water, we did a piece on this a week or so ago. A bottle of bottled water can have as many as 10,000 particles of plastic in it, and they get into our body and they get clogged, they plug up organs and things. I mean, the impact of this, we're literally pooping plastic now, and the impact of this is serious stuff. So go with stainless steel, glass or stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't break, right? $20 a month, you get that water bottle. With $30 a month, you get the stainless steel water bottle and the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag, which is kind of cool. Democracy begins with you, water bottle. With with a $500 gift, with a $500 one-time gift, you have two options. One is a virtual meet and greet. We're going to hold a little online town hall. It'll be on the internet. It's not going to be live on television. In fact, it's not ever going to show on television. It's kind of an off-the-record town hall, you and I hanging out. If you can't come to Portland, this is a great way to do it. And you'll see me and I'll hear you, and we'll be doing it with Skype or Zoom or whatever, whatever you do. And it will be online. So that's $500 for the virtual meet and greet. $500 also if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. On June 10th, next Monday, I'm going to be signing books in D.C. at the Busboys and Poets on K Street Northwest, and at 6:30 p.m. And an hour before that, at 5:30, we're doing a private invitation only or $500 contribution only meet and greet. Kind of a snacks and drinks at Busboys and Poets. So there's that. And then with a $1,000 gift, you're welcome to come to Portland and hang out here on the couch and watch the program going and see how we build a studio out of an office building and an office suite actually, and what you can do with this. And if you're geeky about electronics like I am, be sure to ask me to show you the back room where all the electronics are, the rack room. It's incredible, what we've done. So that's with a $1,000 gift. But the bottom line is, it's not how much you give. It's not what the premium is that you get, although, it's always nice to get something for what you're doing. But what you're really getting is reliably progressive programming, honest programming from people who are not going to BS you, who are not going to song and dance you, who are not going to try to trick you. The stuff that goes on Fox News all day, every day, and that occasionally pops up on the other big corporate networks. That is pretty much missing here. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com, and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jefferson Smith. Honored to be sitting in for Thom Hartmann today. And good morning, priceless people. I've been preparing. We got some good stuff coming up. Some stuff that's not as good, but is important. And hopefully engaging, hopefully edifying, hopefully will make us a little bit stronger rather than a lot worse. Some segments we'll do. We'll do an email from my uncle. We'll have a Watch Your Language segment. We'll have at least one Democracy Nerd interview. I'm hoping to have maybe 2 or 3. We'll do a Priceless Politics segment. What's priceless politics? Worth a lot, not for sale. Big question. What's your Pride memory? It's Pride Month. Mainstream media has been missing it largely. I hope we don't miss it largely. If we're in this together, if what we get together in this show to do is to help bend the arc of history towards justice, and we look for the civil rights battles that remain in our world, this is one for which there has been meaningful progress and which we should take great pride in that as well. What's your first Pride memory? We'll do a Better Money Minute. Are we heading for a recession? What's one thing that you might do? We'll do a Who Watches the Watchmen segment, an eye on the media. And we'll have some base notes, some fundamental base notes that go beneath the, and hopefully cut through the, or at least can be heard amidst the cacophonous treble. I want to start with something that I don't think should be very controversial, but I fear that it will be. And let me say, by the way, the call-in number here is 202-808-9925, 202-808-9925. This should not be controversial. What I am saying should be as pablum as being in favor of healthy apple pie. I worry, however, it's going to be a little bit controversial. It should not be, in my judgment, particularly arguable. It should not be a hot take. But I think it does dip into hot take territory. It shouldn't upset any of you. I am worried that it will upset some of you. I fear it will. Trump has been visiting the United Kingdom. Basically, so Theresa May could make friends with Nigel Farage and continue to be prime minister. It turns out bringing Donald Trump to the United Kingdom, to England, is going to be one of the last significant things that Theresa May does as prime minister. And as we see the pomp, as we see the circumstance, whose side are we on? Are we on Theresa May's side? Probably not on Nigel Farage's side. Are we on Meghan Markle's side? She got called nasty. Or on Prince Harry's side? Are we on Camilla's side when she winked? Are we on the Queen's side? Who some people are presumably on the Trump family side? The New York Times did a story about how the New York Times did a story about how the Trump family sees an opportunity to supplant the Kennedys as American aristocracy. Whose side are we on? Are we on the Kennedys' side? My take is I'm opposed to all that stuff. I'm opposed on all of the houses. I'm opposed to the pomp and the circumstance. Now, let's be clear. Monarchy is very impressive. It took 4 days to set the table. That's very impressive. I don't think Americans make their bed 4 days a month. I want there to be a longitudinal study. I wish there had been a longitudinal study because I don't think that I think that bed making has gone down significantly in the United States. I used to be a bed maker. I am no longer a bed maker. I'm not saying I'm the canary in the coal mine. I just don't think I'm alone. But I am pro-democracy. There is something awesome about dynastic wealth and power. Awesome in its truest sense. Monarchical displays inspire awe. The pageantry, the story, cloaking itself as meaning. I want to get invited to the parties, the real society, the ultimate cool kids. The Lannisters are so beautiful. The Targaryens are so magical and scary. But count me with Samwell Tarly, who wants the people to decide. Sorry, Prince Charles. Sorry, Daenerys. And yes, sorry, Queen Elizabeth, who dazzles with comportment and manners and taste and discipline. What I just said should not be controversial. But a bass note beneath the cacophonous treble of the glitz and the Trump statue and made out of inflated material that can tweet with its inflated small giant hand to remind ourselves that amidst all of these sides, the real side we are on, or at least the side I am on, is democracy's side. Is that here the people decide. Here inherited power is the power with the least moral authority, the least virtue, the least justification, usually the least best results. My message to Prince William, I wanted to meet the guy. I wanted to say it friendly. He seems like a wonderful person. Princess Diana seemed like a wonderful person. My message to Prince William, upon your ascendance, abdicate the crown, abolish the monarchy, put in place additional pro-democracy measures in Great Britain, use that moral authority to fight for real problems, wealth disparities, climate change, leave a legacy like Gandhi, one that will take 80 years after your death to crack and even larger and longer to tear asunder. Champion an idea that can be more powerful than inheritance. Be the last great king of England by being the last king of England. It's good to have you here. It's good to be here. It's an honor to be here. In this maybe little bit, if we can pull it off, oasis of democracy amidst the rise of oligarchy and kleptocracy. And while we watch this amazing display of a table that took 4 days to set, I don't spend 4 days to find the next IKEA couch to watch the next Hulu series that I binge. It's very impressive. But I think that is more impressive is when we get together to solve problems. When we decide the revolution was fought not because we were greedy, not because we wanted to save on our taxes. We fought a revolution because the idea of who is in charge should be based on who the people decide is in charge. And I don't know, maybe that's pablum too. I wish it were strictly pablum. But I am reminded by this before we go to break. As we think about the large historical trends, late 1770s, early 1780s, the Revolutionary War. The world, not only here in the United States, but also in Europe, waking up from a post-Magna Carta residue still of monarchical ideology. 80 years later, the U.S. Civil War, when this country had been forgetting, too many in this country had been forgetting the lessons of how hard it was to unite this country. At the same time, Bismarck unified Germany. 80 years after that, World War II. Also, independence in India. Also, Gandhi's death. Now we're 80 years after that. What lessons are we forgetting? What do we have to remember? We'll be back. I'm Jeff. This is Thom Show.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program, 202-808-9925. We're on Free Speech TV. I'm Jeff. Cheryl from Philadelphia. You win the prize as the first caller.
Hey, Jefferson, it's good to see you back on substituting for Tom. It's always enjoyable.
I appreciate it.
Okay, happy Pride Month, and I'm glad you brought up Pride. I plan to make new memories at the Reclaim Pride March, June 30th, in New York City. Pride has gone very commercial in New York over the past few years with corporate sponsors, and it's become less political, less intersectionality with other issues. And there are people organizing a Reclaim Pride March to take to the streets on June 30th, starting at the original Stonewall bar. It is Stonewall 50. It's the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. And that is in the East Village. It'll convene at 9:30. So thanks for the opportunity to promote it.
No, I'm glad you plugged it, Cheryl. And it's interesting, yeah, who was I just reading? And I didn't see the full analysis, but it was the beginnings of an analysis of how many of the companies who are marching in Pride have spent the lion's share of their political contributions on anti-LGBT politicians, on politicians who have been opposed to same-sex marriage, who have been opposed to laws to make discrimination illegal in housing and work choices, decisions rather. It reminds me a little bit of the May Day, people trying to reclaim May Day for workers' movements. It reminds me also, here's a weird one, but like so many of our best pro-social, pro-human movements can be co-opted for commerce. I'm reminded of William Morris, the founder of the arts and crafts movement, And William Morris was a socialist. And William Morris's writings were talking about we've got to make sure that how we think about art, how we think about architecture is for people, not merely for commerce, and we have to fight for equality in all things. And, now you say arts and crafts movement, and probably what that means is a well-to-do neighborhood in a well-to-do town, entirely untethered from the argument that was happening at the turn of the last century, trying to wake up both from an industrial era that was building wealth disparities and a monarchical era. So I appreciate you reclaiming stuff for the people, for the people.
Well, thank you. Be there, be square.
That's a good motto. David, I think from Hawaii.
Oh, good morning, or rather, morning in Hawaii.
It's morning here too.
I'd like to just point out that the Republican Party claims to be the champions of the free market, and as we all know, we don't actually have a free market with all the monopolies. Companies get to say misleading things by claims of free speech and hide, their so-called business secrets. So there's not like open. No,
data, to be clear, and David, I'll even go deeper. I mean, my point for people who've heard me here before is that free market is the big lie. That, I don't know, the market doesn't seem free. It seems expensive. It seems like I got to pay for stuff. The idea of equating commercial power with freedom was one of the biggest lies Kaiser Soze ever told. We'll be back. This is Jeff on Tom Show. We are back. I do have this thing in my craw about the monarchy. When I watch upstairs, downstairs TV shows, I root for change of the fundamental system. Same thing when I watch state dinners. But I am interested in a number of things, including the number of debates that are happening in the United Kingdom, and they go beyond Brexit. And it's one of the best things that England ever did, and that was, in fact, the National Health Service. Brad is calling from Elk Grove Village, Illinois. Brad, how you doing?
Hi, Jefferson. I'm glad to be on the air. My question is, and who does Donald Trump think he is to be telling another nation or even implying what kind of health service they should have? Now, what's democracy? Leave those nations, any of them, alone. Let them decide. Part of democracy is live and let live. And as long as they're not stepping on your toes, and all he's seen is an economic opportunity. My second point is this, and I got a lot of points to discuss, but only this second. God is about love. It is far more of a sin in my mind that heterosexuals engage in using and abusive behavior than two men, women, whatever, engaging in a relationship out of love. God is about love. God is about wanting us to have freedom to choose our own spiritual and ultimate fate.
Agree completely. Appreciate the call. On the second thing, all I'll do is agree. I may cite back to it a little bit later, Brad. But I do want to respond to the comment about healthcare. It doesn't surprise me at all that Donald Trump is engaging in an international debate on healthcare on foreign soil. Because I do think we have to do some dot connecting. If we think that the recent election in India, where the party that spawned from the movement, that is the same movement whose member killed Gandhi and whose founder was fomenting opposition to peaceful ideas and opposition to Gandhi himself. And that movement has now, which was thrown into the dustbin of the margins in the late 1940s, is now not only ascendant, but is the significant majority in India. If we think that is entirely disconnected from Brexit, if we think that is entirely disconnected from Steve Bannon's efforts in building white nationalist operations in other European countries, if we think that is totally divorced from Benjamin Netanyahu and the policies that he is trying to make majority policies in Israel, a country that has been the leader of the kibbutz, if we think that is divorced from the arguments that Mercer was, we now forget about him a little bit. He was the biggest Republican donor not that long ago. There is who was hopping on airplanes that he owned, presumably, in order to foment an international movement against the post-World War II rough consensus. And the way Donald Trump got elected was in part with the help of international players who were trying to disrupt that consensus, including the Russian government, who also don't really like the idea of democracy ascendance and of pluralism as a dominating idea. The idea that one dominant idea should not so fundamentally dominate all others. So it's almost his duty as a member of that team for Trump to, when he goes to another country, say, oh, instead of everybody in the United States realizing they got it way better in England with healthcare, way better, I've got to try to go there and tell them that we've got it better in the United States, even though we've got more money per capita and worse health. Even though we've got more profits in the healthcare service, but less service. Even though we've got a healthcare system that is now has significantly greater access thanks to Obamacare, still hasn't figured out sufficiently healthcare costs. England has that much more figured out, except they've been gutting it. Of course he's going to do that, because the reason we've got to lift our eyes just from the tweet of the day and connect some of the dots, just as we have to think about the bass notes, not just the cacophonous treble. We have to recognize that he is now part of an international movement, and I will say an un-American movement. I think it is time to reclaim patriotism, because this idea is fundamentally un-American in the best and truest sense. Because what we indeed had revolution over was whether power should come from something like kleptocracy, or something like inheritance, or something like monarchy, or if power should come from people. That's the big idea. That's the big idea that Magna Carta was fighting for. That's the big idea we got to fight for. If you're trying to fight for a healthcare system that is for people rather than a healthcare system that's merely for the few, it's the same fight. We're going to be back. I was told we have 1 minute. I'm going to give my Better Money Minute right now. Are we heading for a recession? More and more predictions that we will have the Trump recession in 2020. Study, I will cite the study, I think it was Harvard, I think I got it from the Harvard Business Journal. The companies that survived, that did okay during the last recession, were those that saved money on capital expenditures, CapEx, saved money on labor costs. Bad news, by the way, for people who are in labor. And they're not just costs, but who invested in R&D. Well, humans can learn from that, both to be prepared for it, but also to realize what can we do during those times to learn to do R&D for ourselves. More on that in a little bit. We'll be right back. This is the Thom Hartmann Show. I'm Jeff.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
This is the Thom Hartmann Show, 202-808-9925.
Today, Jefferson Smith is filling in for me because I'm in Los Angeles for the Hollywood premiere of a new movie, a new Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I'm in. It's called Ice on Fire, Ice on Fire. And it'll be playing on HBO on June 11th, just FYI. But anyhow, that's where I am. But I wanted to drop in and please ask you to support Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is a vital community resource. It's a really important, not just community. It is. There really is nothing else out there like Free Speech TV. There is no other network that has an unabashed, proud, progressive programming lineup. It just comes right out and says, okay, here's who we are, here's what we do, and you know, by the way, if you'd like to keep seeing this, if you want to see more, please chip in now. Please call 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV doesn't exist without you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV was started originally. John Schwartz and John Stout started this thing playing videotapes of, you know, like conferences and speeches and stuff like that. You know, good progressive programming, but it wasn't live stuff and it wasn't interactive. And over the last decade or so, they have expanded this network and turned it into this extraordinary place where progressive stuff is happening all the time. I mean, we're going to be broadcasting live from Netroots Nation. I mean, there's just like all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all because you have called 877-378-8669 and said, yes, I want to pitch in. I can't tell you how important it is. Well, I can tell you. I am telling you how important it is that right now you support Free Speech TV, that you give us a call right now at 877-378-8669 and kick in your support. Because, you know, this network literally doesn't exist without you. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that slightly misstates my slogan. It's fair and only slightly unbalanced, our program. With a 72, so it's you know, it's like, you know, the pennies that are misprinted, you know, it's even more valuable. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of Guns and the Second Amendment, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month gift, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And, you know, a lot of people are moving to stainless steel, by the way, you know, getting away from the plastic and all the chemicals and the hormone disruptors and things that are in plastic bottles. If you're going to have a water bottle, this is the way to do it. Plus, then, you know, I mean, now, you know, the bottled water, we did a piece on this a week or so ago. You know, a bottle of bottled water can have as many as 10,000 particles of plastic in it, and they get into our body and they get clogged, you know, they plug up organs and things. I mean, the impact of this, we're literally pooping plastic now, and the impact of this is serious stuff. So go with stainless steel, glass or stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't break, right? $20 a month, you get that water bottle. With $30 a month, you get the stainless steel water bottle and the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag, which is kind of cool. Democracy begins with you, water bottle. With with a $500 gift, with a $500 one-time gift, you have two options. One is a virtual meet and greet. We're going to hold a little online town hall. It'll be on the internet. It's not going to be live on television. In fact, it's not ever going to show on television. It's kind of an off-the-record town hall, you and I hanging out. If you can't come to Portland, this is a great way to do it. And you'll see me and I'll hear you, and we'll be doing it with Skype or Zoom or whatever, you know, whatever you do. And it will be online. So that's $500 for the virtual meet and greet. $500 also if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. On June 10th, next Monday, I'm going to be signing books in D.C. at the Busboys and Poets on K Street Northwest, and at 6:30 p.m. And an hour before that, at 5:30, we're doing a private invitation only or $500 contribution only meet and greet. You know, kind of a snacks and drinks at Busboys and Poets. So there's that. And then with a $1,000 gift, you're welcome to come to Portland and hang out here on the couch and watch the program go on and see, you know, how we build a studio out of an office building and an office suite, actually, and what you can do with this. And if you're geeky about electronics like I am, be sure to ask me to show you the back room where all the electronics are, the rack room. It's incredible, what we've done. So that's with a $1,000 gift. But the bottom line is, it's not how much you give. It's not what the premium is that you get, although, it's always nice to get something for what you're doing. But what you're really getting is reliably progressive programming, honest programming from people who are not going to BS you, who are not going to song and dance you, who are not going to try to trick you. The stuff that goes on Fox News all day, every day, and that occasionally pops up on the other big corporate networks. That is pretty much missing here. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Be coming to your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com.
Hey, everybody. Good morning to our friends west. Good noon to our friends east. And hello to our friend Caroline Frederickson, the president of the American Constitution Society, the author of The Democracy Fix for our folks on the screen. I will even show the book, How to Win the Fight for Fair Rules, Fair Courts, and Fair Elections. Caroline, thank you so much for being with us. The reason that we're so glad to have you is for many reasons, including the recent ProPublica article helping to delineate a little bit what's going on with the Federalist Society. I want to make sure, first of all, that you're here with us. Caroline, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Welcome.
Can you hear?
I can. So wanted to ask about the Federalist Society, then also wanted to ask about the American Constitution Society. Let's start with just a quick introduction of the American Constitution Society, the organization that you lead, and then we can go to some of the genesis, even why that was so important and so necessary.
Absolutely. Well, so ACS is one of our nation's leading progressive legal organizations. We actually believe that the law should be a force for good in the lives of all people. And we have a national network of lawyers, law students, judges, scholars, and others who are dedicated to defending the meaning of the United States Constitution as it applies in the 21st century. And we are committed to advancing democracy, equality, and rule of law, and to guaranteeing that equal protection of the laws includes groups who were not previously included as the people under the Constitution. So we have a very different take from the groups on the right, and I'm eager to talk to you about what's going on and what people can do to make sure that we can actually fix our democracy.
How significant is the Federalist Society?
They are extremely significant. And, one of the things people should be aware of is that, as much attention as we spend inevitably on the craziness that's coming out of the White House and the president's tweets and his attacks on members of the royal family and all of the kind of distractions that we have, they have actually had an enormous impact, the White House and the Federalist Society working together in changing our courts into a real bulwark for right-wing activism. And what they're doing there is moving through their process a group of extremely right-wing individuals who believe that Roe versus Wade was wrongly decided, who think, and you're an expert on guns, right? So who think the Second Amendment means that everything you want, any kind of armament you want to possess, you can have, that there are no limits, who believe that gerrymandering is just fine, voter suppression is okay, and that plutocrats can buy our elections. That's their vision of our judiciary, and they're actually making it happen. And what's most real, disturbing is that these are lifetime appointments. So as Trump fills the judiciary with this group of people, we can't just think that the next election is going to change it back.
Why do you think the conservative movement has been more motivated in terms of their donor apparatus and in terms of their voters?
Well, it's a great question, and there are a couple of reasons.
To focus on courts and elections than progressives have been.
Exactly. Well, so as one of the history that I lay out in my book, The Democracy Fix, it really goes back to the early 70s. And there's a famous, or maybe infamous is a better way to describe it, memo called the Powell Memo, which was written by Lewis Powell, who, before he became Supreme Court Justice, was a big tobacco lawyer and very active with the Chamber of Commerce. And what he was arguing
wasn't he corporate counsel for the Chamber of Commerce?
He was active on all sorts of committees. He was not in-house at the chamber, but because he was representing tobacco.
Got it.
Philip Morris in particular. And so what he argued was that he saw that the free enterprise system, capitalism, was under threat because some legal advocates and others had happened to start putting some constraints on their ability to sell cars that were incredibly dangerous, like Ralph Nader, for example. And they had to pay out damages and make their products better. And there was a lot of activism around the environment that was, again, also putting constraints on corporate America, not allowing them just to dump toxic waste everywhere. And we passed the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. President Nixon actually even set up the EPA. And part of all this, though, and he sent this memo to the Chamber of Commerce. He says, we need to do something about this. And what we need to do is collectively have an investment plan that's big money, where we, and he meant big corporations in America, join together and fund these institutions that are going to control power for the long term. And by institutions, meant, organizations that would produce ideas, organizations that would produce people to run important infrastructure of government, so judicial pipeline, legal people who worked in legal jobs, but also other types of important positions. So a kind of a leadership development piece, and the media, and the Chamber of Commerce took it to heart, and they invested in a whole group of organizations, including the Federalist Society, the Heritage Foundation, ALEC, the infamous American Legislative Exchange Council, which drafts terrible legislation, stand your ground, and voter suppression bills, and so forth. And so they moved forward with this. So one of his big points was that the courts really matter, and corporate America got that. They were facing lawsuits, class action lawsuits, and others, because they were marketing dangerous products and they were polluting our air and our water, and they actually rightly had to start being responsible for some of that, or be held to account. And so, so they invested a lot of money in ensuring that the courts were a place that they could control. And so, in part, this has been driven by big donor money. The Koch brothers, they get it better than almost anybody.
And on this program, I know that there is a pretty significant focus, even on the Powell Memo, even of the origins. And I appreciate sort of your early 70s launch pad. That is also the sort of timeline, not just the Powell Memo for me, but the launch pad of so much of the modern conservative movement. Right. Why, in your judgment, has it been? Is it just, well, there was a first mover and the second mover has been 40 years behind, or why is it that whether you want to call it the organized left or whether you want to call it the Democratic Party, whether you want to call it the progressive movement, whether you want to just call it pro-democracy forces, have more taken courts for granted? Partly I can see why the Koch brothers, for instance, and another plug for Democracy in Chains that also talks about the primacy of courts in conservative strategy, is they had the lesson of the Lochner era as a mechanism by seeing courts as a mechanism by which anything that democracy made could be eliminated, could be torn asunder, or could at least be blocked by a right-wing conservative court. But it would seem that the Warren Court era would also give progressives a reminder of how important is to have courts. Why do you think that there hasn't been? Is it a funding challenge? What's the biggest challenge that ACS has, or the progressives have, or that pro-democracy folks have in catching up to the Federalist Society? Is it just funding? What is it?
Well, so, the couple things. One is that, the wonderful thing about being on the left side of the spectrum is that we really represent America. But it means there's a lot more diversity of interests and demographic diversity. And as a result, there are a lot of issues that are sort of come to the fore that we have not done a good enough job at connecting to the courts. But we are not a top-down hierarchical movement. It poses its challenges in terms of, having that kind of singular focus like they've had on the right. It's obviously, I prefer that. I prefer that we are much more diverse and, much more bottom-up than top-down. But, as anybody who runs an organization or thinks about, sort of change, it's a lot harder to kind of, as they say, herd the cats, as opposed to the Koch brothers telling people what to do. And, even if you look at just the funders on the right, you'll see that basically there's the small group at the top tell everybody else what to do. And they've coordinated. They all agree that these are their priorities and the strategy, and they go in big.
And the Republicans fall in line. And before we go to break, are you seeing now a greater awakening among pro-democracy voters and funders about the importance of the courts? I'm hoping that answer is just an obvious yes, making my question really stupid. But what signs are you seeing of an ascendant pro-democracy movement with respect to the judiciary?
Well, it's not a stupid question because it's one that we haven't had as clear an answer for in the past as we do now. The signs are, well, for number one, Donald Trump has shaken everything, and I think his success in getting Gorsuch and Kavanaugh on the bench has been really shocking to a lot of people. I mean, Kavanaugh in particular. All of the issues that came up with Kavanaugh.
Caroline, hold on a second. We're going to break. We'll be back in just a second. Caroline Frederickson, okay. American Constitution Society, author of The Democracy Fix.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We've been talking to Caroline Frederickson. I'm Jefferson Smith, sitting in for Tom. We'll be right back. Back with Caroline Frederickson from the American Constitution Society, the president, the august archon of the American Constitution Society, a pro-democracy judicial or legal group. And you were saying about in the wake of Kavanaugh and Gorsuch's appointments and confirmations that a lot of people are waking up. What are some of the signs you're seeing that people are waking up, and what are they doing about it? Or what are you seeing sort of institutionally as people try to see the risk board of kind of political apparatus?
Right. Well, so great question. So number one, the actual presidential candidates are really talking about this as an issue. That's kind of pathetic that we note that, but, I'm sorry, in the past, that hasn't really happened. Even though I think Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, they're both lawyers and they both, have a keen sense of the importance of the courts, they just didn't talk about it on their campaigns. Even though I think for Hillary Clinton, there was a profound issue because Barack Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, had been blocked, hadn't even gotten a hearing. There was, an opening on the court. So it's an issue that, would have been, I think, galvanizing. But instead, she chose to run away from it. Barack Obama, when he was running, didn't talk about the courts. But now we have almost every presidential candidate not only talking about, the dangers of a Trump court, but also talking about reforms that could be implemented, because the court has gotten to be so far to the right and so overpowerful that many see it as a danger. It's sort of the whole idea of checks and balances and separation of powers has gotten out of whack. because the Supreme Court has arrogated so much power to itself to check congressional actions. That is, the actions of the democratically elected branch.
Yeah, and that to me is the
shut down.
Yeah, and that to me is the good news, maybe opportunity, but the great threat is when presidential candidates, in my experience, in my memory, Democratic presidential candidates would talk about the courts. They would say, well, this is what, they would bring up Roe versus Wade, they'd bring up choice. But it's so clear now that we're also talking about fundamental environmental protections. We're talking about, is there health care policy that Congress can set that will stick, or will it be eliminated by courts? It's about voter access and whether or not that right-wing strategists will be able to block access to the polls from otherwise valid voters. It's about campaign finance and whether the campaign system, or their entire system of democracy, will be flooded and just entirely dominated, has been flooded, whether it be entirely dominated by secret money. I mean, it's essentially every issue. Am I an alarmist when I say that my fear is, in fact, another Lochner era, that it is an era that where we see, or we come out of our next recession, hopefully not a depression, trying to do stuff about it, and then have an entrenched court that blocks democracy's efforts to solve common problems?
No, I'm exactly with you. When I wake up in the middle of the night, these are the nightmares that have woken me up. Yeah, I do. I'm very afraid. These are people. Donald Trump's nominees will not say that they believe that Brown versus Board of Education was a properly decided court decision. That is truly shocking. Even, George W. Bush's nominees, George H.W. Bush's nominees, Reagan's nominees would have always embraced Brown versus Board as one of the crowning jewels of the Supreme Court's decision-making process.
Caroline Frederickson, thank you so much for joining us. American Constitution Society, the book is Democracy Fix. Really appreciate your work.
It was great to be on. Thank you.
We're back. This is the Thom Hartmann Show. I'm Jefferson Smith. Some of you have been very patient. Some of you wanting to take me to task about my views of the British Constitution, my views about the Revolutionary War. You've been so patient. Now it is your opportunity to rip me to shreds, which I don't like. I'm very sensitive. But Mike from Lomita, California, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Jefferson, you are true to your name in that you represent the views of an American Republican of the 1770s. However, I think you lack complete understanding of Northern European constitutional monarchies as they exist today. In the first place, do you know how much tourism, dollars or lira or yuan or any other currencies are brought to Britain each year owing to the British monarchy?
Yeah, I think people will still go visit Tower London and check out the crown jewels, even if the crown wasn't still subject to primogeniture.
I could only say that one morning.
A lot of people go to Disneyland. Doesn't take monarchy for Disneyland.
Yeah, but then it's not about a monarchy in the first place. One morning I tried to go jogging in Green Park, and it was later than usual time for it, and I found myself in a mob. I mean, an absolutely astounding crowd because they were changing the guard, and all the tourists had shown up. It's a lot of money involved.
No, I know, and I know, and I'll give even a stronger argument in favor of it, and that is that one governance value that it has is it separates the real governance function, which is vested in Parliament, from the ceremonial function, which is vested in the Queen, currently the Queen, and that is another advantage. And I get those advantages. For me, it's a critical principle, and it's not worth tourism dollars. It's not worth tourism dollars to sacrifice that principle. And let me finish my point, Mike. And that principle is that power should not come primarily from inheritance. That to me is the bottom line view. Maybe a little bit. Maybe get some genes, maybe get some training, maybe get a house, but that ultimately dominance in our culture and our society and our economy should not come from inherited power. And I think that that principle is worth the tourism dollars. I recognize I may be in the minority in the entire world experience, but I do think that that's my principled view.
let me cut to the chase then. You suggested William should abolish the monarchy once he inherits. He lacks the power because the monarchy does not have the power.
No, he'd have to campaign for it. He'd have to campaign for it. I mean, you open it up.
It would take Parliament to abolish the monarchy, and the monarchy exists by popular consent.
No, I get that, but you open it up with I think misestimating my understanding of the British system. I recognize that he couldn't do it by fiat. I think he could do it with moral authority. I think that he could build the popularity necessary to work with Parliament to get rid of it. And I will say, my tongue is a quarter in my cheek when I open up with saying that the important thing is to abolish a British monarchy. I understand that it is a ceremonial enterprise. And I also think that the fight in the world right now is about democracy, that the most important argument that is happening right now is from where and to whom should power vest, and that this is an opportunity to talk about that, and I just don't think the tourism is worth it. But I recognize that not everybody agrees with me, and I do appreciate your call, Mike.
Well, it has very little to do with actual power. It has a lot more to do with ceremony and ritual and symbolism. And do you know...
Exactly. Oh, Mike, this is exactly right. And this is why I am where I am. Is because the symbolism for me needs to be symbolism of the people. The symbolism for me, the thing that we should be visiting, the thing that we should be lauding, the thing that we should be praising and appreciating and watching the changing of the guard for, should be stuff about the people. Should not be about, oh, isn't it neat that King Henry VIII did this and this, and now we have Queen Elizabeth. And that's the thing, that's the story that we celebrate more than any other story. That's the thing that drives our tourism. That's the symbol that we cleave to. I want declarations of independence. I want symbolism, however imperfect, stories, however much oppression that they also include, that are still trying to figure out how we can bend our history towards justice. It is entirely the symbolism that is the thing that I'm hoping to change. But I do appreciate you calling me and making sure that I'm not missing stuff important. If we disagree, it's, strictly because we disagree. John, somebody else, you also disagree with me about the Revolutionary War from Los Angeles.
First off, let me just say two things. One, I love you, Jefferson. You got an open mind, and you're right on, and I agree with you on a lot of the things that you were saying about symbolism stuff. But here's some things about me as a black man. I don't even like the term African American because I know what that comes from. For me, as a colored man, a black man, I need you to understand something. The Revolutionary War was a part of what everybody's dreaming I thought of. And even Howard Zinn wrote that in his book, Lies That My Teacher Told Me. The truth of the matter is, while everyone else was getting rid of slavery, America did not want to do it because they had this bustling new area that they wanted to use their corporate Iran God to build their nation on. And they used it on the blood, sweat, and tears of First Nations and us. And that's the thing. When Revolutionary War actually started, all of the world at that time pretty much had got rid of slavery. King George even told them, we don't want anything coming from America in which slaves were a part of. And that's why they got mad and threw that Iran tea into Boston Harbor and destroyed all of the British stuff. And that's why. It wasn't because of taxes. No. It was because they wanted to get rid of slavery, and America did not want to. And the proof is in the actual words of the nation's song.
So there's no doubt. First of all, John, go ahead. Finish your thought. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, the proof is in the Star Spangled Banner song itself. Because when the British came here, the ones that came from on top through Quebec.
We're going to break, and let me respond really quickly. First of all, no doubt, Revolutionary War America was an oppressive place. No doubt. That said, Northerners who already weren't engaging in slave practices to the degree that was being engaged in the South were not motivated strictly by that. In the same way that I don't think the Civil War was only about finances, I don't think it was about morality. I also think the Revolutionary War was about morality. But we'll talk.
You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Today, Jefferson Smith is filling in for me because I'm in Los Angeles for the Hollywood premiere of a new movie, a new Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I'm in. It's called Ice on Fire. And it'll be playing on HBO on June 11th, just FYI. But anyhow, that's where I am. But I wanted to drop in and please ask you to support Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is a vital community resource. It's a really important, not just community. It is. There really is nothing else out there like Free Speech TV. There is no other network that has an unabashed, proud, progressive programming lineup. It just comes right out and says, okay, here's who we are, here's what we do, and by the way, if you'd like to keep seeing this, if you want to see more, please chip in now. Please call 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV doesn't exist without you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV was started originally. John Schwartz and John Stout started this thing playing videotapes of like conferences and speeches and stuff like that. Good progressive programming, but it wasn't live stuff and it wasn't interactive. And over the last decade or so, they have expanded this network and turned it into this extraordinary place where progressive stuff is happening all the time. I mean, we're going to be broadcasting live from Netroots Nation. I mean, there's just like all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all because you have called 877-378-8669 and said, yes, I want to pitch in. I can't tell you how important it is. I can tell you. I am telling you how important it is that right now you support Free Speech TV, that you give us a call right now at 877-378-8669 and kick in your support. Because, this network literally doesn't exist without you. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that slightly misstates my slogan. It's fair and only slightly unbalanced, our program. With a 72, so it's it's like the pennies that are misprinted. It's even more valuable. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of Guns and the Second Amendment, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month gift, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And, a lot of people are moving to stainless steel, by the way, getting away from the plastic and all the chemicals and the hormone disruptors and things that are in plastic bottles. If you're going to have a water bottle, this is the way to do it. Plus, then, now the bottled water, we did a piece on this a week or so ago. A bottle of bottled water can have as many as 10,000 particles of plastic in it, and they get into our body and they get clogged. They plug up organs and things. I mean, the impact of this, we're literally pooping plastic now, and the impact of this is serious stuff. So go with stainless steel, glass or stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't break, right? $20 a month, you get that water bottle. With $30 a month, you get the stainless steel water bottle and the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag, which is kind of cool. Democracy begins with you water bottle. With a $500 gift, with a $500 one-time gift, you have two options. One is a virtual meet and greet. We're going to hold a a little online town hall. It'll be on the internet. It's not going to be live on television. In fact, it's not ever going to show on television. It's kind of an off-the-record town hall, you and I hanging out. If you can't come to Portland, this is a great way to do it. And you'll see me and I'll hear you, and we'll be doing it with Skype or Zoom or whatever, whatever you do. And it will be online. So that's $500 for the virtual meet and greet. $500 also if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. On June 10th, next Monday, I'm going to be signing books in D.C. at the Busboys and Poets on K Street Northwest, and at 6:30 p.m. And an hour before that, at 5:30, we're doing a private invitation only or $500 contribution only meet and greet. Kind of a snacks and drinks at Busboys and Poets. So there's that. And then with a $1,000 gift, you're welcome to come to Portland and hang out here on the couch and watch the program going and see how we build a studio out of an office building and an office suite actually, and what you can do with this. And if you're geeky about electronics like I am, be sure to ask me to show you the back room where all the electronics are, the rack room. It's incredible. What we've done. So that's with a $1,000 gift. But the bottom line is, it's not how much you give. It's not what the premium is that you get, although, it's always nice to get something for what you're doing. But what you're really getting is reliably progressive programming, honest programming from people who are not going to BS you, who are not going to song and dance you, who are not going to try to trick you. The stuff that goes on Fox News all day, every day, and that occasionally pops up on the other big corporate networks. That is pretty much missing here. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jefferson Smith, sitting in for Tom this week. It's an honor to be here. We appreciate you. Welcome to our friends listening on Sirius. By the way, for our friends listening on Sirius, you ought to talk to Sirius about adding the first hour, because we just did some really good stuff, and you missed it. That doesn't mean we're not really glad to have you now. We're really glad to have you now, but you're going to have to go back and listen to other stuff that already happened. We love you. We appreciate you. We're having a debate that in some respect I did not anticipate. And I am going to stick to some degree to my, I guess I don't have guns. Let's stick to my principles. That there should not be a monarchy. I don't think it should be that controversial, but I still think it. There should not be a monarchy. We should not have, and there shouldn't be a country that has unfettered transfer of vast wealth and power from one generation to the next merely by it being one generation after the previous, even if it's good for tourism and tabloid sales. And I also think we should have had an American Revolution, even though so much of our country was oppressive. Let me say, I don't laud the past whole hog. I don't believe that retrograde movement to some bygone days in some full-throated way would get us back to better prosperity and morality or make America great. When we celebrate the good parts, it should not be to cloak the bad parts, but to inspire us to address those bad parts too. To remind us that we are stronger together than we are apart. And that our redemption, that addressing our sins, that trying to do better in the future, that trying to be morally advancing on our collective challenges and our best selves, individually and collectively, is the best way, maybe the only way, to address those sins. We have to focus on the ways when we can bend the arc of history towards justice. And so when so much of the nation's attention is on the pageantry of an American president who himself got his wealth from inheritance, who is now and will now transferred his fame to his children, will transfer that wealth to his children, not because he, like the Kennedys, merely talked about politics at the dinner table. It's not clear that they did. Not because he had a son that won the Pulitzer Prize, but because they are engaging in and hope to continue the transfer of vast wealth from one generation to the next, and forget that that is, in fact, why we fought a revolution. At least it's the best reason why. And that when the pageantry of that connecting with something that we celebrate in Great Britain, and that happening simultaneously to us forgetting lessons of democracy, that it is a chance to remember the importance of democracy. We've been taking it for granted. I think we've been taking it for granted for 30 years, maybe 50. And it's now time for us to take it for granted no longer. Andrew from, I'm not sure I'm going to get this right, Wauchula, Florida, go ahead.
That's close enough. Thanks for taking my call, Jeff. I want to just quickly follow up on what your earlier caller was addressing, and talk about a possible appropriate path. Because one of the things that's important to understand about the structure of British political and social life is that the United Kingdom has no written constitution.
I know.
Everything in the UK is tradition. So not only is the monarchy tradition, not only is the upper house tradition, not only is the House of Commons tradition, the only written constitution the UK has actually is Magna Carta.
They could pass a vote. They could pass a vote to change all that.
If you want to campaign for something, and something that William and Harry and Anne probably would be able to get behind, and nobody ever talks about Anne, but she's a much more significant person than people recognize.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so is to start talking about a written constitution.
Love it.
Okay, because that's your first step. The first step is not the abolition of the monarchy. It's not William and Harry standing up and saying, let's do away with this institution, and to understand that you might have 150 years of a constitutional monarchy. You'd be moving in the right direction, and you would certainly be doing something that would create a much stronger sense of enfranchisement among the people of the UK. But here's my counterpoint to that. The people in the UK apparently have a much stronger sense of enfranchisement than we do here. You know, we need to be working on our voter profile. We need to be working on our problems with disenfranchisement, because the people in the UK go to the polls, man. And
this is one of the roots even something that strengthened John's call earlier. Is like if I'm throwing rocks, should I also attend to our own glass house? Yeah, I hope that's mostly what we do on this program, of course, and for sure. And I'll agree, and I'll also quibble. My agreement, in fact, I'm going to take it on. So I've honestly had this in my head for like 20 years. Like ever since when Prince William was a tiny little guy, I was like, I want to write this kid a letter. You know, I was at a fancy law school at the time, and I was thinking, I want to meet this cat, and I want to talk to him. But now, if I ever have my chance, Andrew, I'm going to take your thing. I still think that part of that Constitution is a phasing out of the British monarchy. I'm not giving up on that. But I'm adding your thing. I love your thing. I appreciate it a lot. And of course, we got to fight for democracy here. And frankly, I know we're going to have more impact on that than anything I say is going to have on the British monarchy. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. When you write the Constitution, just as in the articles of our Constitution.
I hope if I get to write it, it would be awesome. I think I would write an excellent Constitution.
Well, get with a couple of British subjects and start writing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're not going to. I don't think they're going to outsource it. I don't think they're going to. It would be. We would have really won the revolution if the next step was we get to write the British government's plan. That would be amazing. That would be.
You're just going to be the general secretary of the committee, okay?
Oh, that's fair.
So get with some Brits and say, okay, what would a truly ideal constitution for the UK?
And that's some of the opportunity, right? Because I am worried about a constitutional convention in the United States. There are some really strong arguments for it, Larry Lessig.
Yes. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now. We're going to pass the ERA before we talk to anybody about a constitutional convention in this country. We're going to pass the ERA.
Exactly. And it is a. And so I get worried about it, about doing constitutional convention here, even though they're so obvious, such obvious changes. You just mentioned probably the first, and either that, I might put up with that also, Larry Lessig's call for constitutional amendment addressing Citizens United. But England might. I don't know how much the Sun, I don't know how much Sky, I don't know how much Rupert Murdoch is dominating those things. I know that he certainly helped put their conservative government in power. 15 years ago, I might have felt a little bit different. 20 years ago, I might have felt different. But having a chance to have a new constitutional document that could include 21st century mores and standards, and to address misogyny, to address racism, it could be a wonderful, beautiful, and important thing. And I do think that's the kind of symbolism we need. And you know what, I bet if that happened, people would go visit it. I bet you'd watch the changing of that guard. I bet you'd go and see the place where Prince William signed the document and where Parliament signed the document, and Big Ben would be even more famous, and they'd make another European vacation movie. That's what I think. David from Seattle will talk to you next. I just heard the music. That means we're going to break. I'm Jeff Smith. I hope well, it sounds like there are at least 3 or 4 people interested. I hope it's not the only 3 or 4 that are interested in this. But we will be getting back also to the topic of what's happening in our courts. Also, we'll have a Watch Your Language segment. Also, we're going to do some Democracy Nerd. You're listening to The Thom Hartmann Show. I'm Jefferson Smith, 202-808-9925.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program, 202-808-9925. Joy from Thompsonville, who you win one of the most patient listener awards. Actually, I think you're second place right now, and talking about one of the most important topics in the world. Go ahead.
Jefferson?
Hello.
This is Joy. I live in Illinois.
Welcome.
I'm talking about climate change.
Thank you.
Because even though I'm a political junkie, I wish I could talk about it today, but instead I have to talk about climate change. And what I learned through hearing Dr. Guy McPherson on Tom's show. Mm-hmm. But he didn't give us the punchline of his book, Dr. McPherson. I got the book, and I read it, Only Love Remains, Dancing at the Edge of Extinction. And in his book, he just comes right out. And he is what they call the father of abrupt climate change. And he's saying in his lectures, I've heard that we have maybe till this fall, 2019, or at the most, perhaps 6 or 7 years more, not the optimistic 2050 even. Or definitely not 2100. And so just like I wanted the truth, even though the truth isn't great at all. It's horrible, but it makes everything change. You know, why should I worry about politics if we are going extinct? And whatever our government is doing or has done, it's behind the scenes, and they're not telling us the truth.
Yeah.
And you can just go to his website.
And yeah, Joy, plug the website real quick. Joy, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to plug the website?
Oh, sure, I do, so people can, decide. It's Guy, G-U-Y, McPherson, McPherson.com.
Joy, thank you so much for calling, and thanks for championing that. Corky from Hilton, New York. You're on Free Speech TV.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm wondering, this guy is embarrassing me as a country.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on the world stage. He's a total embarrassment. How long are those people that voted for him going to put up with it?
Yeah, well, I think that unless there is a significant move within the Republican Party, and everybody keeps focusing on Nancy Pelosi or when will Democrats come out strongly in favor of impeachment, that's a legitimate question. A significantly more important question, I think even a more morally appropriate question is, when will there be more than just Justin Amash among the Republicans talking about what's happening? And to me, the biggest challenge is not embarrassment. Right, I'm not worried about Billy Carter. I'm not worried that he says nasty things as much as I am that in doing so he enables and promotes or cloaks and distracts from, or all of the things at alternate times growing oppression in the country. So if Republicans don't do something, the next chance is the big election. The next chance is 2020. It's got to be not only presidency, but everywhere on the ballot. We'll be back in just a sec. This is Tom Show. We're back on the timely issue of what should be the governance structure of the United Kingdom. Should there be a King of England? See, I actually do think it's important. I think it's important not because I think that question itself is important, merely, but because I do think that fundamental, base principles, we've just been taking them for granted. I'll use an example, and here is one of the Watch Your Language segments for the day. And this is one of my, we'll call it original. I didn't hear it from anybody else. I didn't steal it, so I guess it's original. Barack Obama and Ezra Klein and many in the center-left establishment who I know and love have been making the case for 2 years that one of the big problems of Donald Trump is that he has been violating norms. When Barack Obama had a chance to meet with Donald Trump, when Donald Trump had just been sworn in, he said, you got to be aware there's laws, yes, but there's also norms. So much of the criticism of Mitch McConnell has been that, well, he's violating norms when I think it was the North Carolina legislature threw out the powers of their new Big D Democratic executive after his election. They said, well, it's violating norms. Geez, we got to do something about norms. I agree that it is concerning that our norms are being eroded. I don't think we should merely call them norms. For multiple reasons that are kind of obvious. Hashtag watch your language. And that is one, the more popular norm is actually the guy in the TV show Cheers. If we ask what the heck is a norm, people answer the question. I don't think everybody's dumb. But, it varies, the definition of the term. It's not something we talk about when we're talking to our families. Hey, let's make sure that we stick up with the family norms. When we're in school, trying to keep things together, or on a team, or in our place of work, hey, everybody, we have norms here. Got to follow the norms. And we don't mean a group of people in the break room. Let's call them principles. Let's call them principles, because we know what principles are. We can disagree on what those principles should be, but we know what principles are, and we think there should be principles. And when Mitch McConnell steals a Supreme Court seat, it is not merely non-normative. It is not merely abnormal. It is unprincipled. When Donald Trump doesn't make sure that the actual governing apparatus of the country doesn't ensure that there are people in place to make sure regulatory agencies can do their jobs, that is not merely a violation of some norm. That is a violation of principle. It's bad on principle. That the debate about a legislature stripping powers from an executive merely because that person is in the wrong party, not because there is, in fact, conduct that is impeachable, that should be based on principle, not merely a norm, whether it's in North Carolina or whether it's in the United States of America. and that we should be talking about principles. And how is this connected to my weird topic, the King of England? I know it's now Queen of England and soon will be again. Let's not say soon. Hopefully no time soon. Everybody loves Queen Elizabeth. She seems like a marvelous person. But will again be a King of England? That part of what is going on in India is a forgetting of principle, a principle of democracy, a principle of pluralism, a principle of freedom of religion, a principle of we're stronger together than we are apart, a principle that is shared, that fascism is a really bad idea, a principle that inherited power and wealth should be significantly limited because otherwise it's just tyranny. And these are not merely norms. Because guess what? A lot of people aren't that big a fan of what's normal right now. What's normal for so many people ain't that good. And that's true across many political persuasions. What's normal doesn't feel that good. We got the biggest wealth disparities in 100 years. We can't even call it weather anymore. It's freaking bleak. Oh, let's get back. Let's have what's normal. I don't know, normal. Let's work for what's good, or it would be better, it would be right, it would be just. Let's fight for principles, not just norms. Hashtag watch your language. And that's why, to me, it is connected to some of the symbolism stuff. That's why it is worth us getting to first principles and talking about what are we doing here in the first place? Is this just a show so people can watch some stuff and listen to some stuff as we head towards oblivion? Or are we participants in democracy? Are we going to try to make the country and the world a little bit better? Is that a project that could give meaning to our collective lives? Is that a reason to keep doing stuff after we've paid our bills? I think it is. I think those principles are worth doing. I think that the production team that puts on this show isn't just doing a job, they're part of a calling. I think if you listen to this show, you could be listening to a lot of things. I hope it's because we have a collective calling, and that's to make democracy better. And we have to fight for those basic, hopefully build towards those basic principles because they've been taken for granted. I just got told we have 1 minute. I was going to take a call. But I know if I take a call, I'm not going to be able to answer them. I'll have to do it after the break. I'll do this. I got an email. I said I was going to do emails from my uncle. My uncle's a wonderful guy. I love him. We have different politics. And to his credit, I really think it's to his credit, he gets viral emails and he sends them to me. But he doesn't just say, Jeff, my liberal nephew, will you agree with me that the previous one I got and talked about it on the air was that that Muslims are going to take over the government of the United States. We're going to have Sharia law in the United States of America. And what I appreciated about him forwarding me that email was he said, what do you think? Is there any truth to this? And I spent more time than I would have otherwise, like actually responding and offering a bunch of math and a bunch of legitimate links. The more recent one was about the ship Maersk, which, well, it's empty, and that means we have a trade deficit with China, but it means we're shipping nothing to China. Turns out that was from 2011. Daily Kos had debunked it 8 years ago. But it does remind me, let's talk to our families. Let's talk to, not because we're going to fundamentally change everybody, but because a little bit at a time, I think we can educate one another and make our democracy a little stronger.
To the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We're going to be right back with your calls, 202-808-9925. I'm Jeff.
This is
Today,
the
Jefferson
Thom
Smith
Hartmann
is filling in for me because I'm in Los Angeles for the Hollywood premiere of a new movie, a new Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I'm in. It's called Ice on Fire. And it'll be playing on HBO on June 11th, just FYI. But anyhow, that's where I am. But I wanted to drop in and please ask you to support Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is a vital community resource. It's a really important, not just community. It is. There really is nothing else out there like Free Speech TV. There is no other network that has an unabashed, proud, progressive programming lineup. It just comes right out and says, okay, here's who we are, here's what we do, and you know, by the way, if you'd like to keep seeing this, if you want to see more, please chip in now. Please call 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV doesn't exist without you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV was started originally. John Schwartz and John Stout started this thing playing videotapes of, you know, like conferences and speeches and stuff like that. You know, good progressive programming, but it wasn't live stuff and it wasn't interactive. And over the last decade or so, they have expanded this network and turned it into this extraordinary place where progressive stuff is happening all the time. I mean, we're going to be broadcasting live from Netroots Nation. I mean, there's just like all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all because you have called 877-378-8669 and said, yes, I want to pitch in. I can't tell you how important it is. Well, I can tell you. I am telling you how important it is that right now you support Free Speech TV, that you give us a call right now at 877-378-8669 and kick in your support. Because, you know, this network literally doesn't exist without you. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that slightly misstates my slogan. It's fair and only slightly unbalanced, our program. With a 72, so it's you know, it's like, you know, the pennies that are misprinted, you know, it's even more valuable. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of Guns and the Second Amendment, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month gift, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And, you know, a lot of people are moving to stainless steel, by the way, you know, getting away from the plastic and all the chemicals and the hormone disruptors and things that are in plastic bottles. If you're going to have a water bottle, this is the way to do it. Plus, then, you know, I mean, now, you know, the bottled water, we did a piece on this a week or so ago. You know, a bottle of bottled water can have as many as 10,000 particles of plastic in it, and they get into our body and they get clogged, you know, they plug up organs and things. I mean, the impact of this, we're literally pooping plastic now, and the impact of this is serious stuff. So go with stainless steel, glass or stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't break, right? $20 a month, you get that water bottle. With $30 a month, you get the stainless steel water bottle and the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag, which is kind of cool. Democracy begins with you, water bottle. With with a $500 gift, excuse me, with a $500 one-time gift, you have two options. One is a virtual meet and greet. We're going to hold a little online town hall. It'll be on the internet. It's not going to be live on television. In fact, it's not ever going to show on television. It's kind of an off-the-record town hall, you and I hanging out. If you can't come to Portland, this is a great way to do it. And you'll see me and I'll hear you, and we'll be doing it with Skype or Zoom or whatever, you know, whatever you do. And it will be online. So that's $500 for the virtual meet and greet. $500 also if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. On June 10th, next Monday, I'm going to be signing books in D.C. at the Busboys and Poets on K Street Northwest, and at 6:30 p.m. And an hour before that, at 5:30, we're doing a private invitation only or $500 contribution only meet and greet. You know, kind of a snacks and drinks at Busboys and Poets. So there's that. And then with a $1,000 gift, you're welcome to come to Portland and hang out here on the couch and watch the program going and see, you know, how we build a studio out of an office building and an office suite, actually, and what you can do with this. And if you're geeky about electronics like I am, be sure to ask me to show you the back room where all the electronics are, the rack room. It's incredible, you know, what we've done. So that's with a $1,000 gift. But the bottom line is, it's not how much you give. It's not what the premium is that you get, although, you know, it's always nice to get something for what you're doing. But what you're really getting is reliably progressive programming, honest programming, programming from people who are not going to BS you, who are not going to song and dance you, who are not going to try to trick you. The stuff, the stuff that goes on Fox News all day, every day, and that occasionally pops up on the other big corporate networks. That is pretty much missing here. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com.
We're back on the Thom Hartmann Show. I'm Jefferson Smith. It's an honor to be with you. I'm your substitute teacher. Hopefully your favorite substitute teacher. Appreciate you. Call-in number is 202-808-9925. You can also tweet us at Thom Hartmann. You can tweet me at Jefferson D. Smith. I had anticipated this being the big topic of the day, but I am glad it's becoming a pretty big topic because I am consistently and frequently concerned about our being a cat following the laser pointer and not thinking about deeper principles. And so I appreciate it we find topics that are so clearly connected to deeper principles. Had a text in about climate change, and that text was, because I'd referred to Game of Thrones earlier, that text was the idea about us avoiding the climate change fight while arguing over who is president does feel a little bit like Cersei Lannister worried about who's on the Iron Throne while the Night King is approaching the realms of men. Yeah, I'm a Game of Thrones nerd and it's over. So I know I need to get over it, but we can process together. Grant from Kenmore, Washington. Connecting the King of England and climate change. Go ahead, Grant.
Although I'm usually opposed to some sort of authoritarian figure like a king ruling over me, I'm going to go against you and say that in this day and age, the King of England or maybe the Emperor of Japan would be a good thing because they could put their foot down for a country and not be partisan to start the climate change process, start a Green New Deal in any country that has a king.
Grant, I just had a lengthy discussion with a dear friend, really smart cat. He's finishing his advanced economics degree in France right now, and we had a telephone debate. I probably should have recorded it about whether there should be, in his words, not a King of England on climate change, but a climate Stalin, someone who would be disruptive, including violently disruptive, to address the problem of climate change. And we had a moral and strategic and governmental and historical debate. And I won't go through the whole thing right now, but I hear where you're coming from. And that I don't talk about democracy because I think it's so obvious. I don't talk about it because I think everybody so clearly agrees that it's the way we should do everything or continue to do anything. I talk about it because to some degree I agree with Winston Churchill that it's lousy, but it's less lousy than all the other stuff. And that we have to figure out how democracy can work. And to strengthen the argument, heck yes, a monarchical system, or at least a dictatorial system, could have real advantages in addressing collective problems and saying, okay, all of you mob of voters who want to continue to drive everything you're driving as I do everything that you're doing as I too often do, take all the planes you're taking as I too often do. You want to live your same life. You want to pay your same taxes. You don't want the price of the gas pump to go up. You don't want to be bothered to put solar panels on your house. You don't want to change your energy usage. You don't want to live a simpler life. Okay, fine. Well, you don't get to decide anymore. It's going to be decided by a ruler, and that ruler might have a greater chance to address the problem. I don't disagree. It is the strongest argument in favor of dictatorship, is that a dictator can solve real problems even when the people are dumb or wrong or misled or selfish or short-term minded. But I feel about democracy the way I feel about freedom of speech. That most often, and maybe I just take it on faith, and maybe I'm wrong, which is why we take the calls, so you can tell me when I'm wrong. One of the reasons we take them is that is it like freedom of speech? I think that hopefully, maybe it is just ideology and faith. The best answer to bad speech is more speech. Is addressing it, is making sure that platforms don't have to treat false speech the same way they deal with true speech. They don't have to deal with fighting words and fire in a crowded theater and stuff that's merely hurtful as real discourse. Don't have to pretend that purchase speech is the same thing as free speech. But nonetheless, my idea is the best idea to beat a bad idea is a conversation about ideas and having a free flow of ideas. I feel the same way of democracy. That the best way to address the problems of democracy is addressing the problems of democracy, is more democracy, is addressing what's happening with voter suppression, is address what's happening in media, address what's happening with campaign finance, address what's happening with voter education, address what's happening with investment in the apparatus of democracy. Excellent article in The Hill, which is very often leads a conservative paper, an excellent editorial, or maybe just letter, saying that philanthropy, which right now only spends, 1/10% on democracy, could help save democracy if invested in democracy. That ultimately is where I land. Paul from Glenside, Pennsylvania, speak your piece.
Hi, Jefferson. The whole thing about the crown of the British system of government and whether it should be eliminated or not, you're really onto something. I don't know if you
Thank goodness. But somebody's with me. Go ahead, Paul.
There's several books written by people in England who are sick and tired of the royalty and the aristocracy over there. Basically, one of the books is called "Who Owns Britain" by a guy named Cahill, and a more recent one's "Who Owns England" by a guy named Shrubsole, which sounds like a real British name. But the bottom line is, almost 70% of all of the ground in England, 40 million acres, is owned by like 1/3% of the population. Like the Duke of Westminster, the Church of England, the royal family in Buckingham Palace literally own hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres personally, and these other dukes and duchesses and whatever they are over there. I can't keep barons.
Yeah, and to be clear, the folks who say it's ceremonial, it's not like the Queen of England is a paid actress, marshalling resources owned by the people. To be clear, she owns that stuff and she's allowed to pass it and live a government supported life.
Yeah, their fortune is in the billions of dollars. They get rent. You can't buy land in England. All those office towers that are going up, land is capital. And what they get from people is a return on that capital. They never give up the capital. As they say, don't dip into the capital. They haven't given up the land. These people have owned land since pre-capitalist times, when land was everything. They haven't relinquished that. So today, all their wealth and the power in England to develop their economy rests in the hands of an even smaller group of people than we see in the United States.
And this, to me, is the big fight. This is why I bring it up. It's partly because I think it's fun, but it's also because, I think you're onto something, Paul, and that is that the big fight, really since the Magna Carta, has been whether owning stuff at the point of a spear or a sword or a gun, or just everybody accepting it as a norm.
Exactly.
Whether
Think
owning stuff should be power.
Islands and the war over there.
Or consent of the governed is power. And we got to be on the side of consent of the governed. Paul, thank you so much for calling. Really appreciate it.
All right. Good job.
Thank you. Jan, I think it's another wonderful person with a wonderful brain, a wonderful soul is going to tell me how I'm wrong. Jan from Washington, go ahead.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't even talk to anybody unless it was you.
Oh, that's very kind.
That last caller had it right. And what everyone forgets about is that we were thrown on this land with nothing but an axe and a rifle, and we had to survive. And And we were usurped. Our power was usurped by these people that were, had everything, and all they wanted to do was just colonize other countries and take their money and all that stuff. And I just have one other thing to say about this, and I think it has to do with everything, all of our troubles that we're going through in this country. And it's this friend of mine back in high school. He said, there's nothing like being dumped in the middle of a city with not a dime to your name.
Well, I appreciate your call, Jan. Thank you so much for calling. You're listening to Thom Hartmann Show. The call-in number is 202-808-9925. One of the topics was, we have a couple of people also want to call, we can get to it after the break, about the origin of the Revolutionary War. It's an interesting moral question whether it was a just war. To the extent that war can be just, I'm in favor of the American Revolution. I have no illusion. I hope I don't have too many illusions. I probably have some, certainly have some, about the moral status of the American colony and of the colonists and of the moral status of the early American government. And I do recognize that slavery wasn't abolished even in the North until after the Revolutionary War. I think it was 1804. And at the same time, I think it is worthy and worth it and worthwhile to champion the governance by the consent element of the Revolutionary War. That shouldn't be pablum. Or maybe it should be pablum, because I hope we agree.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We want to hear your Pride memory. It's Pride Month. What's your first, your best, your most important, your favorite? 202-808-9925. Pride memory. Terry, Chicago, Illinois, you're on Free Speech TV. It's good to hear from you.
What a pleasure, Jefferson. Yeah, very quickly. Finally, one of my favorite authors, the guy who wrote Red Moon, my daughter gave me a copy, and about page 300, the Chinese are given 1 million carbon coins to every person in the world, okay? Which probably went over everybody's heads, but I know what he's talking about. Our problem, Elizabeth Colbert in the New Yorker pointed out that in the last 500 years, 27 million square miles have been cleared of trees and drained of swamps, which takes away the Earth's ability to remove a gazillion tons of carbon out of the air. So basically what we need to do is
plant 1 trillion trees.
Carbon credits and pay everybody to plant trees.
Yeah,
okay.
And done at scale. In fact, even Terry, the topic we were talking about before, if the argument for monarchy is that a monarchy could save the planet, then to me the move of the land that monarchies would own would be not merely for the garnering of rents, for the generation of privately held wealth, but would be for the protection of nature, the protection of the planet, the sequestration of carbon, the cleaning of the air. And at that point, we might be able to talk about there being something like a benevolent dictator. But at this point, I don't know that we got that. In fact, I'm quite sure we don't.
But here's the problem. See, if you do dictator-type things like the citizen climate lobby,
yeah,
they immediately leap to a tax, and a bigger and bigger tax on, using fuel. This doesn't go anywhere. If you grow trees and actually invest in the trees and have a carbon market where you actually use the damn money. The carbon is money. A carbon coin is what he calls it, and I was going to call it diamondback. But basically, we tried to start a carbon future market in LaSalle Street here in Chicago, and everybody is so crooked and criminal, they don't really grow trees. They were just shorting the market.
Yeah. Well, Terry, I really appreciate your call. Appreciate it. Take Lowell's call from Salem, Oregon. Hey, Lowell.
Hi, Jefferson. I just wanted to bring up, speaking of the environment, cars cost far more to a society than they actually pay for or contribute. For example, the Oregon roads, Oregon just on the paper says $5.3 billion for Oregon roads may not be enough. So all those high gas taxes that drivers complain about are not even paying for the basic roads, much less the pollution that they create.
No, not even close. And actually, if we had a benevolent dictator that was looking at the economy during this time of economic growth, probably would have been the time when we would have increased the gas tax to either to invest in 21st century worthy transportation and infrastructure projects, or to be ready for a coming recession when we would have then some capital to invest in some steps of a Green New Deal. Because you're right, like now, cheap gas doesn't pay for roads, doesn't even count for all the costs it externalizes. But I know I just didn't say anything brand new, but Loyal, we'll take it. Thanks for calling.
Norway is a democratic socialist country. The United States is an unfettered capitalism country, right? A laissez-faire capitalism. Let's compare the two. Norway has an average tax rate of 38%. Our average tax rate until last year was 30%. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com and you get signed up.
Howdy, everybody. I'm Jefferson Smith sitting in for Thom Hartmann. It's an honor to do so. Summer's almost here, depending on when you count. Some people say that the beginning of summer is what, like June 21st? To me, it's June 1. To me, it's June, July, and August. That's the summer. September is the fall. And I know my view doesn't count. Call in number 202-808-9925. It is time for us to welcome our friend Bob Ney, Talk Media News, talkmedianews.com, to tell us what's happening in the world. Hello, Bob.
How are you?
Are you enjoying your summer? And Bob, do you consider it summer now, or do you still call what is happening now spring?
Summer.
Okay, you're with me. What's happening?
Summer.
What's happening this summer, Bob?
Well, this summer, we're hearing one more time about Iran and how the president is willing to talk to Iran. Of course, the president is still in the United Kingdom, but he did an interview over there, and there were different issues he raised, but the one that got the top of the headline is that President Trump said he's open to talks with Iran, but he wouldn't rule out military action against the country. So he's still, saying a possible military action. But what we know, Jefferson, if we're looking at this whole history of Iran after the president canceled the Iran nuclear deal, which then allowed for his national security advisor, John Bolton, who's never met a war he didn't like, to be able to say, wow, the Iranians are going to develop nuclear weapons, because, of course, we canceled the deal, and therefore there's, in our minds, nothing to restrict them from developing nuclear weapons, although they are still part of the deal with the Europeans. So having said that, this got right up to the edge, and the way I've analyzed it, and friends I've talked to also in D.C., I think they would agree that the National Security Advisor, John Bolton, convinced the President of the United States that, hey, remember how you threatened Kim Jong-un and he talked with you? You can do the same thing to the Iranians, which doesn't work with the Iranians. And now the President's trying to back this off a bit with his own Secretary of State Pompeo on Sunday, saying, well, we're willing to talk with no preconditions, which is a complete change from the Trump administration's policy of trying to sanction everything about Iran, including the air they breathe.
I mean, it reminds, I would say, it really does remind me of Obamacare. And I know that seems like a weird connection, but when they tore down the Iran deal, when they tore down Obamacare, they didn't have a better plan ready. In fact, in large part because the Obamacare was drawn pretty closely from the Mitt Romney plan in Massachusetts, from the longtime sort of Republicans' best idea to create a healthcare exchange. Similarly, when they dumped the Iran deal, it wasn't because they had, oh no, here's a better deal in place, but just because they thought that Obama was the poisonous tree, they had to destroy the fruits of the poisonous tree. What do you think they can negotiate that would be better? Or what do you think there would be a better deal? Some say they don't even want a deal. All they want, and all Netanyahu wants, is U.S. military intervention in Iran. Maybe you're more optimistic than that. Do you think there is an objective that is clarified? And if so, what do you think that objective or those objectives might be?
There is but one objective, in my opinion. Now, I've lived in Iran. 1978, and in Congress, I think, as you know, Jefferson, under President Clinton and Bush, I was involved with Democratic and Republican members on the Iran issues. So I've seen this, a long time. At that point in time in my life, I met John Bolton, who, has made it crystal clear he wanted us to pre-bomb Iran. So the initiative and the objective, to answer your question, is to have a war with Iran. That's what John Bolton wants. That's what Netanyahu wants, and that's what Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia want. Of course, they want us to do it, and so that's the objective. And what happened here, I think, again, President Trump thought that he would get the Iranians to talk. He followed Bolton's advice. Now, Bolton didn't care, because if he could get them up to the brink of war, that would be okay with John Bolton. Again, I'm not making this up. He has publicly said, he wants to preeminently bomb Iran just in case, basically. He's been saying this for 20 years. So that's the motive, Jefferson. Now the president himself, through sources we know, last week said that Bolton has tried to talk him into about 3 wars already.
Yeah.
So that was the motive. It was not about trying to get the Iranians to negotiate. There was nothing in negotiation tactics in Bolton's mind of doing this. Nothing.
Can we play rampant speculation? As you imagine the debates within the Oval Office now, with Bolton and the others, I mean, reporting ended up indicating back in the day it was sort of Colin Powell was the one who ended up being the lone voice, but was to some degree an oppositional voice. As I recall, was it even the New York Times were saying, well, Colin Powell is essentially operating as the Democrat, essentially operating as the opposition party within the White House. Who do you think? Can you offer us any speculation about the power dynamic, the discussion dynamic? I mean, some of my thought, if you want to be, well, I don't want to say my thought. If you want to be really conspiratorial, you could say, well, maybe it's intervention from a foreign power. Who's on the side of non-intervention at this point?
Well, on the side of non-intervention, and they've communicated this to the White House, I'm sure, are the Europeans.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, the Europeans across the board are on the side of non-intervention.
And there's no Tony Blair. There's no Tony Blair this time.
No. In the White House itself, former Tillerson, he got fired, and Chief of Staff Kelly, he's gone. Right. Those were on the other of not intervening.
Bob Ney, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Shepard.
Talk Media News, talkmedia.com. I'm Jefferson Smith. This is the Thom Hartmann Show. 202-808-9925. We'll be taking your calls.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Today, Jefferson Smith is filling in for me because I'm in Los Angeles for the Hollywood premiere of a new movie, a new Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I'm in. It's called Ice on Fire, Ice on Fire. And it'll be playing on HBO on June 11th, just FYI. But anyhow, that's where I am. But I wanted to drop in and please ask you to support Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is a vital community resource. It's a really important, not just community. It is. There really is nothing else out there like Free Speech TV. There is no other network that has an unabashed, proud, progressive programming lineup. It just comes right out and says, okay, here's who we are, here's what we do, and you know, by the way, if you'd like to keep seeing this, if you want to see more, please chip in now. Please call 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV doesn't exist without you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV was started originally, John Schwartz and John Stout started this thing playing videotapes of, you know, like conferences and speeches and stuff like that. You know, good progressive programming, but it wasn't live stuff and it wasn't interactive. And over the last decade or so, they have expanded this network and turned it into this extraordinary place where progressive stuff is happening all the time. I mean, we're going to be broadcasting live from Netroots Nation. I mean, there's just like all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all because you have called 877-378-8669 and said, yes, I want to pitch in. I can't tell you how important it is. Well, I can tell you. I am telling you how important it is that right now you support Free Speech TV, that you give us a call right now at 877-378-8669 and kick in your support. Because, you know, this network literally doesn't exist without you. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that slightly misstates my slogan. It's fair and only slightly unbalanced, our program. With a 72, so it's you know, it's like, you know, the pennies that are misprinted, you know, it's even more valuable. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of Guns and the Second Amendment, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month gift, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And, you know, a lot of people are moving to stainless steel, by the way, you know, getting away from the plastic and all the chemicals and the hormone disruptors and things that are in plastic bottles. If you're going to have a water bottle, this is the way to do it. Plus, then, you know, I mean, now, you know, the bottled water, we did a piece on this a week or so ago. You know, a bottle of bottled water can have as many as 10,000 particles of plastic in it, and they get into our body and they get clogged, you know, they plug up organs and things. I mean, the impact of this, we're literally pooping plastic now, and the impact of this is serious stuff. So go with stainless steel, glass or stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't break, right? $20 a month, you get that water bottle. With $30 a month, you get the stainless steel water bottle and the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag, which is kind of cool. Democracy begins with you, water bottle. With a $500 gift, with a $500 one-time gift, you have two options. One is a virtual meet and greet. We're going to hold a little online town hall. It'll be on the internet. It's not going to be live on television. In fact, it's not ever going to show on television. It's kind of an off-the-record town hall, you and I hanging out. If you can't come to Portland, this is a great way to do it. And you'll see me and I'll hear you, and we'll be doing it with Skype or Zoom or whatever, you know, whatever you do. And it will be online. So that's $500 for the virtual meet and greet. $500 also if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. On June 10th, next Monday, I'm going to be signing books in D.C. at the Busboys and Poets on K Street Northwest, and at 6:30 p.m. And an hour before that, at 5:30, we're doing a private invitation only or $500 contribution only meet and greet. You know, kind of a snacks and drinks at Busboys and Poets. So there's that. And then with a $1,000 gift, you're welcome to come to Portland and hang out here on the couch and watch the program going and see, how we build a studio out of an office building and an office suite, actually, and what you can do with this. And if you're geeky about electronics like I am, be sure to ask me to show you the back room where all the electronics are, the rack room. It's incredible, what we've done. So that's with a $1,000 gift. But the bottom line is, it's not how much you give. It's not what the premium is that you get, although, it's always nice to get something for what you're doing. But what you're really getting is reliably progressive programming, honest programming. Programming from people who are not going to BS you, who are not going to song and dance you, who are not going to try to trick you. The stuff, the stuff that goes on Fox News all day, every day, and that occasionally pops up on the other big corporate networks. That is pretty much missing here. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jefferson Smith, sitting in for Thom Hartmann. Democracy nerd. The reminder for us to go deep and even sometimes broad on what is impacting democracy. Not only taking our system for granted and then arguing about what we should do in the context of that system, but how do we have to improve that system, maintain its best parts, keep its best parts from being destroyed, and improve its worst parts. The previous time on this program, previous 2 hours, are prelude to, well, what's happening here? What's happening now? What's happening in the United States to erode democracy? And what can we do to thwart that, or just to make democracy a little bit better? Joining us right now, Alex Shepard from the New Republic. His article, How Republicans Plan to Rig Elections for a Decade. New evidence confirming the Trump administration wants a citizenship question on the census for one reason, to suppress Latinx votes and voters. Thank you so much for joining us, Alex Shepard. You're on the air. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's good to be here.
All right. So for people who missed it, offer this new evidence. There's been some meaningful discussion about how the Trump administration pushed for the citizenship question to ask, hey, are you a citizen? Knowing well, I shouldn't say knowing that. The accusation has been that was with the motive of suppressing Latino, Latinx votes. You say there's new evidence. There is new evidence. Please explain.
Yeah, so the citizenship question, it has been important to the Trump administration for quite some time now. It's been advocated by Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of the Commerce Department, since the first year of the Trump administration. Now, the administration has insisted the entire time that the reason to add the question, which was on the census until 1950 when it was taken off, is to create a more accurate count so they could better enforce the Voting Rights Act. Now, democracy advocates and Democrats have pointed out that this seems like a bad faith argument, to put it quite nicely. But the administration has...
It's hogwash, and that puts it somewhat nicely.
Yes, there we go. But the administration has continued to make it, including before the Supreme Court earlier this year. Last week, we got a twist that, I think wouldn't be out of place in maybe a John Grisham thriller, which was that Thomas Hofeller, who's this really important figure in right-wing electioneering, he's a very big figure in gerrymandering and voter suppression.
He's big in gerrymandering. Everybody grows up wanting to be big in something. I don't know how many people grow up wanting to be big in gerrymandering, although it was Elbridge Gary, so I don't know how Gary feels about the pronunciation, but you go ahead.
The New York Times referred to him, I believe, as the Michelangelo of gerrymandering.
That's
he
great.
passed away in 2017. His estranged daughter was given the keys to a storage locker in which he had a number of hard drives. And on these hard drives, they found documents that suggested he was involved in the push to add this census question with the express purpose of suppressing Latinx votes, full stop, and that he had done studies to prove it, that these studies had been given to the Trump administration, and that then the Commerce Department sort of began lobbying the Department of Justice, despite the fact that Wilbur Ross claimed that the opposite was true, to add the question to the census.
So, in a different world, let's go back before the dawn of the Federal Society, before the dawn of Fox News, before the dawn of right-wing talk radio, before the dawn of Koch family investment into the right-wing conservative movement. Let's go back to, like Richard Nixon's president, everything's great. No, wait a minute, everything wasn't great. But anyway, it was before all that stuff. This comes out, okay, and it's like, aha, see, that's a gun, it's smoking. It's clear. The jig is up. And the courts make it all clear, and democracy makes it all clear, and journalists make it all clear, and voters make it all clear, and that stuff can't happen anymore, and it's all clear. So I'm sure that's what's happening now. Now, 90% of Americans understand this is going on. The media is aligned to make sure of that. Congress is aligned to make sure that doesn't happen again. Everything's going to be okay, correct? Alex Shepard, everything's going to be fine now.
Yes, that is exactly what is not happening right now.
Okay.
I mean, one of the issues with this, right, is that Donald Trump is president who has a particular knack for forgetting to say the subtextual stuff, right? He says the quiet part loud. We all know what's going on here. We've known what's going on with this question for 2 years. Now, the administration has been very willful in its refusal to acknowledge that. But, even the Supreme Court is treating this as essentially a procedural and administrative question rather than one that's about the fundamentals of the health of American democracy. And I think, there's something that's quite troubling about the fact that they're going to come down with a decision on New York versus Commerce sometime this year. And, this new evidence probably won't impact it, although, the ACLU is in federal court right now.
And stick with that. It won't impact it because it won't be admissible. It won't impact it, or just won't impact it because the judges that were appointed and the justices that were appointed are in fact part of the project to erode democracy.
The latter. I mean, they basically already accepted the sort of administrative and procedural arguments that the administration has made on this in this case. So I don't think that even if you show that those arguments are bunk and in fact, they're just a cover, and in fact that Thomas Hofeller designed them as a cover for this project, that it'll matter because they've accepted those arguments on their merits. I think the other thing is that, this is a court that's rolled back the Voting Rights Act because they said, that we fixed civil rights.
Racism is over.
Yes. And, what was the response to that? Well, a bunch of states, several dozen states, rolled out a bunch of voter suppression efforts. Now, if you think the Roberts Court has learned from that experience, I can't help you. But, they're going to continue down this road for a long, long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this is why I say that what's happening now is not a game, and it's not just a partisan tug and pull, except to the degree that there has been one party that has been co-opted by the anti-small d Democratic movement. That what really is happening, why I appreciate the new book by Caroline Fredrickson. I haven't read it. I still appreciate it just because of its title, The Democracy Fix. That's recognizing that we have to. It's Pollyannish to say we have to be above party because obviously party politics and the Republican Party itself. We have to be willing to name that, I think. But what is it? Do I overstate it? So I think somebody who thinks I'm an alarmist would just say, well, you are an alarmist. You're just Chicken Little. To me, it does seem that the project that is going on is the undermining of democracy. Tell me if I am overstating the case.
No, I mean, I think that you might be understating it. I mean, I think that it's a bipartisan problem too, right? I mean, one of the factors that was behind the rise of Donald Trump was people feeling disempowered, right? Now, some of that is obviously because of racial resentment, which is horrific, but there's another aspect of it in which, democratic or the very fundamental aspects of democracy have eroded all over the country. People are, corporations have an immense amount of power. People's wages have been lowered. For those reasons, they feel like they didn't have a voice in fixing these things. Now, the other side of that project is this long-term Republican one where, there was a point at which the party got together and said, well, we've got two options here. We can either embrace immigration reform, we can continue to make our deeply unpopular but firmly held arguments about free enterprise, or we can become, the party of white people in this country and do everything that we can to stay that way.
Yeah.
And they basically, Donald Trump cemented that, but over the last 5 years, particularly.
Alex, have you read Democracy in Chains, Nancy McLean's book?
I interviewed Nancy. Wonderful book.
Make everybody read it, please. It's really the only book I've ever said everybody's got to read it. Everybody's got to read it. I'm going to say it every time I have a chance. Alex Shepard, thank you so much. New Republic, newrepublic.com. We'll be back. This is Tom's show. I'm Jefferson. You're you. We love you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program. We're getting closer to the big finish. We appreciate you. 202-808-9925. Jeff from San Francisco, you win the Most Patient Listener Award. Your call is on a different topic, but an interesting one. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, well, I think it coincides with what I think really happened with the revolution is we had a banking system, a public banking system in Pennsylvania that was working very well. And the revolution started because they wanted to destroy it, and the Bank of England wanted to invade us, which they did. I don't know. I go into it, but right now there's a bill going on, AB 857, before the California Senate for a public bank in California.
You think it's got a chance?
I think it's got a great chance. I'm sure
The housing bills just went down in California, didn't they?
I could not tell you that.
I need to look that up. I shouldn't just spread that rumor. That was, but my impression was some of the housing advocates' bills just died in the legislature. My fear about banking, and you're right. I have insufficiently connected this. Right? When you think about if we take my simplistic breakdown of the power struggle over the last several hundred years as a struggle between concentrated ownership as the prime mover of power versus sort of human beings getting together and figure out how we make things work for one another and with one another, that property ownership and banking are essentially two big pools of capital and control, and that if you could transfer some of that, I mean, without even talking about means of production, et cetera, if you just could make sure the banking industry wasn't entirely a tool of a concentration strategy, then you might actually be able to rebuild a middle class and make democracy work a little bit better. I mean, it's not a small thing working for public banks, and that's one of the reasons I'm so concerned that even in a place that has a Democratic trifecta, both chambers of the legislature and the governor, that lobbyists have been making friends for a long time will say, hey, you got to kill this bill.
Yeah, well, it went through both houses in 2011, right after, the big fiasco, and Jerry Brown didn't sign it.
And did he offer a non-signing statement? Because this is my concern, right? To pass something.
Could not say exactly, but I know I've looked that up, and it went through, and he didn't sign it, and which is like, we're the fifth largest economy in the world. This is huge. One less thing, Germany with public banking they're like 40% renewable now.
Yeah.
And that's not that sunny a country.
Yeah.
Imagine what California could do. And they say, oh, you can't afford the high-speed rail and, and all that stuff.
No, California, with its mind
much.
to it, California, with put its mind to it, can afford almost anything at once. It certainly can afford its most important priorities. But this is I know that I know that I'm just a bill, taught us all how a bill becomes a law, but this is an important thing for us to know, because one of the things I am hoping that when I participate here, it's in the hope that all of us will participate a little bit more, that you'll find something in your local community, you'll find something in your state, some issue you're passionate about where you can have some impact. If each of us have a little bit more impact, all of us collectively can have a much bigger impact. And and therefore, the following kind of thing is really helpful to know. It's a lot harder to pass something than it is to keep something from getting passed. Okay, little quick lesson. In order to pass something, you got to win 5 times generally. You got to win in committee and on the floor in the House, if it started in the House. You got to win in committee and on the floor of the Senate, if it started in the House. Flip that if it was started in the Senate. And then you got to get a governor to sign it. You got to go 5 for 5 in order to pass it. To stop it, you just have to go 1 for 5. Committee or floor, or committee or floor, or the executive. We'll be back. This is the Thom Hartmann Show. We're in this together. We are back. I am Jeff. You are you. On the air is James from Clear Lake Oaks, California. How you doing, James?
Pretty good. How are you today?
I'm doing all right.
So I've been thinking about your theme there about how to salvage something out of all this. And I don't know, it just seems to me that a big part of the problem of getting all these people together who might have a little bit of time and money and so forth to try to, plug in somewhere is that, either just like the groups that are doing this kind of work can't handle it because they don't have the staff, or just people don't know how to.
It's hard.
Organize amongst each other and just come up with some way to figure out, okay, is this guy, for real or whatever, or some kind of infiltrator or something like that.
No, it is hard. So I think what I hear you saying, James, is that getting involved in politics can be easier said than done. Is that a fair summation?
There's always a risk of at least time and money.
Oh, not only a risk, because that's not a risk, that's a cost. It's going to cost time, or it's going to cost money, or it's going to cost both, no question. And I've been wrestling with this in my own brain and in discussion and in time and in strategy and in budget meetings for, almost 2 decades now. And that is, how do we do it? So here are a few things. One, we're not all, this is what, I think this was Thoreau, we're not here to do everything, we're here to do something. So we don't have to feel guilty that we're not doing all the stuff. We just have to feel that we're doing our part. And one moral way, in fact, a philosopher, a friend of a friend said, well, one way to evaluate our own behavior is that it's sort of a collective golden rule. If each of us acted as we are acting, would society work? Okay, and I think if each of us only go from Barcalounger to Job and back, if all we do is burn carbon and eat hamburgers, then society won't work. That each of us got to pitch in a little bit. We got to find something. We got to work on our common democracy project together somehow. So if we start with that assumption, you're right. It's hard to find that thing for all the reasons that you said and more. Well, do I know this is the right group? What if they don't like me? What if I don't like them? What if they don't have exactly the right thing for me to do? What if the only thing they'll have me do is stuff envelopes? Hey, wait a minute. Do we even do that anymore? We send emails. Is tweeting really enough? I can't really be a big donor. I can't give money. What I'm going to say is, for the change agent, it requires persistence. Jacob Riis, progressive activist and photographer, in fact, made a little more famous when Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs had it as his favorite saying and put it on his desk, and I think put it in the practice facility of the San Antonio Spurs. But it was popular to us well before Greg Popovich. It was one of the reasons some of us became fans of Popovich. So Jacob Riis, I'm not going to get it exactly right. He said, every time I think that I've done everything that can be done, I think about the stonecutter. who strikes a stone 100 times without any sign of impact, until finally, on the 101st blow, the stone splits. And I recognize it wasn't because of that blow, but because of everything that had come before. It requires persistence. It requires diligence. That is the price of liberty. That is the price of a republic. That is the price of democracy. And that counts for the person who's trying to start up a new nonprofit. That counts for a person who's running one. That counts for somebody who's working with a volunteer-led organization. That includes the precinct committee person. That includes the local party chair. That includes the local party treasurer. That includes the League of Women Voters volunteer. That includes the NARAL pro-choice organization volunteer. That includes the person who drives somebody to the polling place. That includes the person who makes 5 phone calls to 5 different organizations and none of them need your help. And then finally on the 6th call, you find somebody and you go there and it doesn't really fit, or they have you do something boring and you keep showing up until you find another one. And you just find something and you do that thing. And it'll stick if you can find 2 things. You find something you care about and you can find some people you like. If you only have one of those, it's probably not going to stick. But if you can find both, something you can care about and some people that you like, you can engage. We did it with the bus project back in the day. We got a bus, we knocked on doors in the closest legislative races in our state, helped turn the state Senate, helped turn the state House, helped change Oregon politics, a bunch of kids. We weren't the most important thing that happened. All we tried to be was a tipping point, one thing, one little bit, one strike of the stone. You never know which strike of the stone is going to split it. So each of us need to do that little bit. But James, I don't say that because I disagree that it is challenging. I say that because I agree that it is challenging. And often the stuff that we have to work for is precisely because it is challenging. Jim from Muskegon, Michigan, I think.
Yes.
Hi there.
You got it, Jefferson.
Woohoo!
Hey, I just wanted to tell you, number one, as an ex-substitute teacher, Tom's got to be very proud of what you're doing as his backup. You're doing a great job, buddy.
I appreciate it. That's very kind. It means a lot.
I want to ask you, to your opinion of, am I the only one that's really offended by the fact that almost every Republican pronounces the Democratic Party as the Democrat?
Oh, no, you should be offended. We should all be offended. Major media organizations should also be offended. It's a little troll, and it's part of... you were going to finish your thought if you hadn't already.
Well, it comes from Joe McCarthy, right?
I didn't know the first person who did it.
That's what Tom said. He said Joe McCarthy started. That was his idea. So, Jefferson, where is the pushback from anybody on this to say, excuse me, are you proud of the fact that what you're saying there was coined by what's his face? I just picked Joe McCarthy. And if you're going to continue doing this, maybe you're the Republican Party or you're a conservative. I mean, is that too sophomoric a response, or
it's a good question, and I struggle with it.
I mean, how do we respond to that kind of crap?
I think the first part, it's a good question, and I've been wrestling with it. In fact, that very specific thing, just yesterday, I was having a conversation about it. That it drives me a little bit nuts. No, it wasn't yesterday. It was this morning when I was listening to Rush Limbaugh's podcast, and yes, I listen to Rush Limbaugh's podcast.
They all say it all the time now.
And it's the whole deal. And I'm not sure about whether it's useful. How useful it is to create a word for the different party, right? I'm not going to opine on that. It's absolutely important to call people on it, and we've got to call people on just being trolls. And when little Shapiro goes and writes a book about civil discourse, and his whole team is being uncivil the entire time, we got to call people on that. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
How do we deal with trolls? How do we deal with folks whose purpose is merely to see the world burn, not to help democracy? We'll talk about that and more coming up.
This is the Thom Hartmann
Today, Jefferson
Program.
Smith is filling in for me because I'm in Los Angeles for the Hollywood premiere of a new movie, a new Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I'm in. It's called Ice on Fire. And it'll be playing on HBO on June 11th, just FYI. But anyhow, that's where I am. But I wanted to drop in and please ask you to support Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is a vital community resource. It's a really important not just community. I mean, it is. There really is nothing else out there like Free Speech TV. There is no other network that has an unabashed, proud, progressive programming lineup. It just comes right out and says, okay, here's who we are, here's what we do, and you know, by the way, if you'd like to keep seeing this, if you want to see more, please chip in now. Please call 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV doesn't exist without you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Free Speech TV was started originally. John Schwartz and John Stout started this thing playing videotapes of, you know, like conferences and speeches and stuff like that. You know, good progressive programming, but it wasn't live stuff and it wasn't interactive. And over the last decade or so, they have expanded this network and turned it into this extraordinary place where progressive stuff is happening all the time. I mean, we're going to be broadcasting live from Netroots Nation. I mean, there's just like all kinds of cool stuff. And it's all because you have called 877-378-8669 and said, yes, I want to pitch in. I can't tell you how important it is. Well, I can tell you. I am telling you how important it is that right now you support Free Speech TV, that you give us a call right now at 877-378-8669 and kick in your support. Because, you know, this network literally doesn't exist without you. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that slightly misstates my slogan. It's fair and only slightly unbalanced, our program. With a 72, so it's you know, it's like, you know, the pennies that are misprinted, you know, it's even more valuable. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of Guns and the Second Amendment, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month gift, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And, you know, a lot of people are moving to stainless steel, by the way, you know, getting away from the plastic and all the chemicals and the hormone disruptors and things that are in plastic bottles. If you're going to have a water bottle, this is the way to do it. Plus, then, you know, I mean, now, you know, the bottled water, we did a piece on this a week or so ago. You know, a bottle of bottled water can have as many as 10,000 particles of plastic in it, and they get into our body and they get clogged, you know, they plug up organs and things. I mean, the impact of this, we're literally pooping plastic now, and the impact of this is serious stuff. So go with stainless steel, glass or stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't break, right? $20 a month, you get that water bottle. With $30 a month, you get the stainless steel water bottle and the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag, which is kind of cool. Democracy begins with you, water bottle. With a $500 gift, excuse me, with a $500 one-time gift, you have two options. One is a virtual meet and greet. We're going to hold a little online town hall. It'll be on the internet. It's not going to be live on television. In fact, it's not ever going to show on television. It's kind of an off-the-record town hall, you and I hanging out. If you can't come to Portland, this is a great way to do it. And you'll see me and I'll hear you, and we'll be doing it with Skype or Zoom or whatever, you know, whatever you do. And it will be online. So that's $500 for the virtual meet and greet. $500 also if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. On June 10th, next Monday, I'm going to be signing books in D.C. at the Busboys and Poets on K Street Northwest, and at 6:30 p.m. And an hour before that, at 5:30, we're doing a private invitation only or $500 contribution only meet and greet. You know, kind of a snacks and drinks at Busboys and Poets. So there's that. And then with a $1,000 gift, you're welcome to come to Portland and hang out here on the couch and watch the program going and see, you know, how we build a studio out of an office building and an office suite, actually, and what you can do with this. And if you're geeky about electronics like I am, be sure to ask me to show you the back room where all the electronics are, the rack room. It's incredible, you know, what we've done. So that's with a $1,000 gift. But the bottom line is, it's not how much you give. It's not what the premium is that you get, although, you know, it's always nice to get something for what you're doing. But what you're really getting is reliably progressive programming, honest programming from people who are not going to BS you, who are not going to song and dance you, who are not going to try to trick you. The stuff that goes on Fox News all day, every day, and that occasionally pops up on the other big corporate networks. That is pretty much missing here. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Chicago and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com.
I want to keep a promise, and that is to think about, and now having thought about it for a few more minutes, give a more full-throated, hopefully more full-brained response to Jim, which is how to deal with, the example he used was the Democrat Party. When a growing number of Republicans, I think it's Mike Molloy would call Republicans, are using a word that they have poll tested to, again, rhymes with rat, to diminish, to undercut, to sort of subvertly insult, maybe not even so subvertly or subversively, insult members of the Democratic Party. And how do we deal with it? First, understand that I think I used the word troll, that the internet troll, and here's not always in the internet, but Limbaugh says it out loud, that purpose is to distract. That purpose is to upset. That is, its purpose is to sow discord. And it's a little bit like linguistic terrorism. And that's an overstatement, but the strategy at a vastly different scale is overlapping. That when I personally, and I think when many of us, advocate against overuse of military power, for instance, in Iraq, it is recognizing that one of the things that maybe the primary objective of the terrorist state is to pick a fight, is to get the United States to apply power so that they can say, look, see how nasty the United States is, let's gather more forces so we can be strong too and defeat them. That the reason for poking the bear is to get the bear to growl so you can get the town to say, look, it's a bear. Let's all get together and kill that bear. And therefore, I am reticent. It's one reason why I'm reticent to merely play the same game. Jim used the word, is it too sophomoric? Well, is it sophomoric or strategic? Would it be fair, would it be moral to do a similar thing? The Republicans. That is not my approach. I'm not sure I'm right. I just have my approach. I do think that there should be things that are taboo, things that are outside the Overton window, things that we in polite society say, for the society work, this is conduct we're just not going to do. And sometimes we're going to slip up and do the wrong thing. I've done the wrong thing. Other people have done the wrong thing. But we're not going to say that was the right thing to do. And we are going to say that we're going to apologize. And we are going to try to do better. That when my strategy is a little bit different. When my uncle emails me something that was forwarded to him from some internet provocateur, some Milo apologist or friend or ally or reader, I don't tease him. I don't assume bad faith. I recognize the context is different because I know him, I respect him, and he's kind enough to send him to me and even ask me a question, not just say, aha, see, dumb liberal, this is what you should think too. But I listen, I find places that are worthy of affirmation, and I use a real basis of morality, of principle, and of fact to respond. And so far, it's kind of been working. Now, I have no illusions. All we need to do is go to Trumpistan and bring some flowers, and we'll all just get along. All we need to do is that Joe Biden is right, that all we have to do is if we just talk nicely to Mitch McConnell, he'll vote in favor of our agenda. I do not live in that world. It's not my belief. But I do believe that we should conduct ourselves the way that we hope that our leadership would conduct itself. That our strategy should be one not primarily of trolling, not primarily of provoking, but of trying to show leadership, to make democracy better, to show that we are stronger together than we are apart. I recognize that makes our job harder. I recognize the dark side of the force has advantages, that it's easier. You win twice when you attack government when you're Republican. Because one, you make everything government's bad, and then two, if you underfund it and make it worse, you prove that argument, and you get people fighting just about argument, and you get about government, and you get the fight in the first place, which makes people not like democracy because they want to run away from it because it seems ugly and yucky. And you win multiple times. And we've got to win multiple times in a row rather than only with one move. Winning multiple times, and that is but that's the challenge of winning with love. That's the challenge of Gandhi versus Savarkar, and Gandhi won, and Gandhi was right. That's why Martin Luther King is a leader that deserves to have at least a day named after him. It's because that means whatever team I'm wanting to be on is coming from a place of love. Not a pacifist, but on net. More than on the margins, love has to win, and we should come from love and come from facts. That said, there should be taboos, and taboos are powerful. And this is something the right-wing movement figured out, that it could define certain things as taboo, and it took a long time. It took them decades to make Democrat, which had been the racist party, which had been the party of the South, to make Democrat a bad word among conservatives. It was hard. They couldn't start that way. They had to start with liberal. They had to start with pinko commie. They go to leftist. Took them a long time to make Democrat a bad word, make Democrat a taboo. So then they could just say that word and move on. So everybody, don't worry about Trump. We have 40% just by saying the word leftist, just by saying the word Democrat Party, just by saying the word pinko commie, Joe McCarthy. Just get the taboo. I do think there is a place for taboos. Racism is a powerful taboo. It is a legitimate one. It is based in truth. It is based in reality. It's based in morality. And we, I think, are permitted, and it's even smart and wise and moral for us to have taboos. Those taboos should be based in reality and based in morality. We need to figure out the other taboos. Fascism is a taboo. It's bad to be fascist. We all agree. It's good that that is a taboo. I think being anti-democracy needs to also be a taboo. That is rooted in fact. There are people right now working against democracy. They're packing the federal courts. They are trying to keep people away from ballot boxes. They're trying to make unfettered money control elections. They are undoing the Civil Rights Act, saying that racism is over. They are anti-democracy. They are anti-democratic. They are anti-American in the best sense. It is based in reality and it's based in morality. Because what we got going for us, the thing we can do to address our collective sin, is to work together to get better. Where something is based in both morality and reality, not just some word game, not just some troll trick, not just some think that its purpose is to provoke, to cause a fight, to demonstrate that we can't get along, because we got to figure out how we can get along. The country can't run over time if only 40% of the people can agree on something. I don't think the next president is going to save us. I got some people I like in the race. They're not going to save us. We're going to have to figure out how we rebuild consensus in the country. And we got to rebuild consensus and not just finding halfway. Not just saying climate change is only half right, racism is only half a problem, misogyny is only half a problem, wealth disparities are only half a problem. We've got to, nonetheless, from a place of reality and morality, build more than a 50% majority. Doesn't have to be 75, but it's got to border on 60. It's got to get close to the FDR majorities if we're going to address the biggest problems. And to do that, we've got to be careful at how we deal with attacking people's identity. That said, we will need taboos. You may make that case of why taboo is so important. First of all, yes, it's shorthand. Not even dog whistle. It's not a dog whistle. The whistle's plenty loud enough for everybody to hear. But it's shorthand. You can say the taboo word and I better stay away from that. And the mind works quickly to avoid the taboo. The other reason the related reason why the taboo is so powerful is because the mind keeps track of, remembers what, 4 times better negative things than positive things. One of the reasons negative campaigning works. So I guess the reason why it works. We're programmed to avoid danger, to avoid the thing we're afraid of, we're disgusted of, we're contemptuous of, we're angry at, to destroy it or to run away from it. Love is harder. Cooperation is harder. Building something, much harder than tearing it down. Takes a year to build a building. They get it torn down by lining up some explosives, takes a little while of planning, and then it goes down in what, a few seconds? Much harder to create than to destroy. So taboos make sense. Taboos are important. Let's make sure our taboos aren't merely for purpose of making battle. Let's make sure our taboos are for purpose of having a more reality-based country and world and a more morally based country and world. All right, Jim, that is my long answer to your short question. It took me a minute to think of it and to think about what I really thought. But one of the reasons I appreciate having a chance to do this show is so we can figure out together what we think about things. And then maybe work together on a little bit better collective understanding so we can have democracy that's a little bit better rather than a lot worse. I appreciate you. The call-in number here is 202-808-9925. Big Finish coming up next. Happy summer, everybody. I'm Jefferson Smith. I'm sitting in for Thom Hartmann. He's promoting his book. He's also going to be away promoting his movie, or the movie, Ice on Fire. Apparently he helped write. It's going to be like staying with the DiCaprio family. It's very fancy. You should see it. It's going to be on HBO. I think it's the 11th. Check it out. I'm Jefferson. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
This is the Thom Hartmann Show. 202-808-9925. We'll do a speed round. I'm Jeff. Denise, you are on Free Speech TV from, I think it's Calumet, Michigan.
Yes, it is.
Hello.
Hi. My thought on everything you're talking about with people, the Republicans versus the Democratic Party, et cetera, is we need to go back to the words of Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. It's the harder road to follow, but the Obamas were the most dignified, highly moral people in the White House in years, and they can't take that away. They can take away all the regulations. Trump can take all this stuff away that Barack Obama did, but he can't take away the kindness and the morality of what that person brought to the White House and what those people brought to the Democratic Party.
Agreed, and I don't want to cheapen the critique. I don't want to dismiss the one of the challenges of what you're saying, or counter-argument to what you're saying, and I even want to address it because I think it's really important. Because what you're saying ain't easy, and at the same time, I totally agree. My own view about protests is that my view of the protest is that if you can do a protest in a way that when somebody sees the protester, they said, I would like for that person to have more power. I would like that. Those are the people who should be having more influence in the country. I should listen to them. I should respect them. I should vote with them. And the protest that doesn't do that as well, I think, is not as strategic a protest. I think we should be conducting ourselves as a movement that makes it so that more people want to join that movement, and recognizing that one team has built a movement, and it's not half the country, okay? It's just a team that has figured out how to win half of one of the major parties of the country, just slightly more than half, and then with, changing some rules, you can have an anti-majoritarian system and win the presidency and win congressional seats.
And bring back some normalcy.
But it's not, wait, say that again?
Bring back some normalcy to our country.
It's interesting, and you just hit one of my triggers. I want to say principle. I want to say principle rather than normalcy.
Okay.
And I mean, I know it's just a quibble and it's just my own errand, but I want to, but bring back some principle, bring back kindness, bring back love, or bring forward if you don't think it existed in the back. But the challenge, and if you talk to one set of gifted political operators, they say, okay, yeah, Jeff, with your when they go low, we go high self. Sometimes it wouldn't work with Hitler, right? Like at some point, you got to destroy fascists. You can't just compromise with them or just stay nice. At some point, you've got to be willing to fight, not only to collaborate.
But we're fighting the good fight.
Yeah, but at the same time, I just think come from a place that, and that's why to me the rule is not just it's not nice versus mean all the time, because sometimes someone's disagreement can be viewed as not nice. A climate scientist who says you're lying about climate science, was that mean or was that nice? Was that going low or going high? I don't know, but it's based in fact. To me, it gets closer to the golden rule, sort of a collective view of the golden rule. Let's try to activate in a way that we would want to follow. Let's try to build political organizations that we would want to join. Let's try to build campaigns that we would be proud to vote for. Let us try to be elected officials that we think merit power. Let's operate with that version of the golden rule. Denise, thank you so much for your call from Calumet. We appreciate you. We'll be back in just a second. This is Tom's Show. I'm Jefferson Smith. You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Show. I'm Jefferson Smith. Let's do a speed round. Fred wins the prize for most patient listener from WCPT. Ain't Afraid of Me, Kingston, New York. Speak your piece, Fred. Fred. Bueller. Michael from Bronx, New York. You want to talk with Mitch McConnell? Go ahead.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Holding up.
You know something? In the interview that you did earlier with your guest about the GOP trying to rig the elections again,
yeah,
I was surprised that you couldn't. No one has included McConnell with the fact that he had blocked the Democrats' bill and trying to secure the elections and keep them from being hacked from foreign adversaries. Wondering what's up with that. But this is the same guy who wouldn't allow President Obama's nominee to the Supreme Court, would not allow a confirmation hearing during the last 10 months of the presidency. But then just last week, when quizzed from another reporter on that same issue, if there was suddenly a vacancy in the Supreme Court, McConnell says we'll fill it right away.
Oh, yeah, no, and I will say that we should. It might be worth remarking upon hypocrisy, although all of us are hypocrites in our own way. I know that climate change is a big challenge. I also drove to get here today. I am a hypocrite in small ways every day, but I don't believe that makes us, I don't think that disqualifies us from trying to look better or trying to be better together than we are apart.
But there's the unanswered question as to how do you know the next president is going to be a GOP unless there was some kind of fix. And for 3 years, that has been unanswered.
So wait, when you said he would, I actually got McConnell's quote differently than you did. He said, "Would you seat the next appointee?" I thought that was in 2020, not after the 2020 election. 10 months
during the 2020 campaign, because remember, 2016.
But to be clear, so that's where I think the misunderstanding is, Michael. Because to me, what was dangerous about that comment was not that he was saying he knew who the next president was going to be. Okay, because an appointment in 2020 would be made by this administration. If Donald Trump makes it through this term, made by Donald Trump. If he doesn't, then the vice president. If the vice president doesn't make through, move on down the list. But so maybe Nancy Pelosi, but I don't think any of us are making that bet. If it's in 2020, the current administration will still be the administration all the way through 2020. Next president doesn't become president until 2021. So when he said, yes, I would seat an appointee in 2020, the hypocrisy, it wasn't a clue that he knew who the next president was going to be, in my reading of it. It was that it was just hypocrisy that he wouldn't seat in the previous election year. But here's my take, which might or might not be responsive. And that is that and it gets back to everything from every single thing we've talked about on the show today, every single thing, from the discussion about monarchy in England to public banking to the rise of the Federalist Society in the Lochner era to take down democratically voted upon policies, to, yes, what's been happening with the takeover of courts now, to our discussion about voter suppression with the New Republic. Every single thing is about this thing. It's whether you're pro-democracy or anti-democracy. That's the deal. And if we're going to make a taboo, it should be that you're anti-democratic, and that's anti-American in the most important way, the most virtuous way. That we want to be pro-democracy. And the reason that's rooted in reality as well as morality is that Mitch McConnell is not pro-democracy at this point. I don't think he can make the case. I'd like to see the case made for him working for democracy to work better, for him to support principles. Some would say norms. I would say principles of democracy. And it's not because he's so special. He rose to power in that position because of that. Donald Trump, in the ways that he is anti-democracy, it's not because that's what makes him weird. The fact that he does that is why he gets to sit in the chair he sits within the Republican Party. That's where the fight is. Joe, you got 10 seconds.
Yeah. In 2007, the scientists went in front of Congress, and they turned around and tried to explain to the Congress, it might have been senators or Congress, it was on C-SPAN, that salt water doesn't evaporate like fresh water. With all the Antarctic glaciers melting like they are, and the Arctic's melting, it's making our water have more rainfall in that by going into the atmosphere when it's down, when it gets warmed up in that. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I watched that. I read really.
Send me a link. You can tweet at me at Jefferson D. Smith. You can send it into the show. I'll check it out. We're coming to the big finish. Today, we did have a chance to talk a little about emails from my uncle. I might have another one in the future. We did do a quick Watch Your Language. We'll do another Watch Your Language tomorrow. Today, it was principles over norms. And mostly what I'm asking for is members of the media, of the intelligentsia, of the chattering class. Oh, it's not normal. It's not normal. No, we need principles. I know the New York Times is worried about if you talk about principles, because then it suggests that might be partisan. There've got to be principles, and we've got to get principles that have 60% support. We're not, 36% of the people, apparently they're going to stick with whatever, however, whenever, no matter what, even if someone guns somebody down in Manhattan, maybe. But we've got to have principles. For my quick thoughts, I do think, and I'll talk about it more tomorrow, that we should be prepared for a 2020 recession. We had some base notes. We did have I thought, a pretty fun conversation about the monarchy. And yes, I will embrace my view that I think that there should be an abdication of the crown, a removal of the monarchy. Also want to give a shout out to our caller. I think his name was Andrew. I'm pretty sure it was Andrew who suggested what they should do, what Prince William should do when he becomes King William is work for our Constitution, so that Great Britain finally has a Constitution, and have it be a pro-democracy Constitution, and then abdicate the crown. And as part of that Constitution, abolish the monarchy. Couldn't agree more. I thought it was a better idea than mine. I'll just finish with gratitude. I'll be with you the next 2 days. If you got thoughts, you can tweet at me. You can even email me at jeffersonsmith@gmail.com. Want to say thanks to CK, who emailed me her best Pride memory in 1970 or 80, living in Berkeley in a communal house. Living in it was me and 5 guys. The gay roommate was the only one who cleaned besides me. We were good friends. A long-haired hippie gay male had a motorcycle, went to Pride in the Castro. Both of us dressed in drag. Me in suit and tie, looking dapper. John dressed female drag, even shaved his legs and wore heels. So much fun. I will never forget it. Carol in South Carolina would also love to hear your pride memories. Understand that we're all in this together. That means bending the arc of history towards justice. And therefore, if you've got somebody who's been discriminated against in your community, you should be on their side. That doesn't always mean being out in front. Very often that means being behind, but being behind in a supportive way. Thanks for being with me. We appreciate you. We love you. You're priceless. Definition of priceless, worth a lot, not for sale. I'm Jefferson Smith. This is the Thom Hartmann Show. We'll be back tomorrow.